Present.
Mr. Birch?
On the phone.
Mr. Birch is joining us on the phone. Ms. Ray Jackson?
Honored to be here.
Ms. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Trainee?
Here.
Mr. Flynn? Mr. Starr?
Here.
Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. Honeman?
Here.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Right here.
Ms. Osiander? And Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn, would you lead us in a pledge of allegiance, please, sir?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Next item of business is minutes of previous meeting. We have two sets of minutes. The first is item 4A. It's a regular scheduled meeting of May 11th, 2010. If I could get a motion on the minutes,
Move
please.
to approve May
Second.
11th.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of our meeting of May 11th, 2010. Is there any objection to the approval of those minutes? Seeing no objection, those minutes are approved as submitted to us. The next item of business is item 4B. It's our regular meeting of June 8th, 2010. If I could get a motion on the minutes.
Move to approve.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any objection to approval?
No objection, Mr. Chair. I just want to make a comment.
That was Mr. Hall that approved, that seconded it, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you. Harriet, you're on. Was there anything else, Harriet?
Thank you, Mr. Train. No, I just wanted to say thank you to the Deputy Clerk, Jacqueline Duke, for doing such a marvelous job and getting them done early and into us for approval. We're now, I think, pretty much caught up, and I really appreciate that.
Harriet, it is just amazing to watch the operation of the clerk's office. Years ago, in a former existence when I was on the assembly, we were about 6 months late, sometimes with the minutes. Some of the people were gone by the time we got the minutes on board, so it's great to see where we're at now.
I agree, Mr. Chair. The school district had the same problem when I was on the school board. I think we were at least 6 months behind at one point, and it takes a lot of work and energy to do that, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Barbara. It's great. Thank your staff. Appreciate it. Those minutes are approved as submitted. We now go on to Mayor's report. Item 5, Mr. Mayor, sir.
As you know, Mr. Trainee, the mayor is on a much-needed vacation for a few days. We have no report. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Michaelis. We now go to Assembly Chair's report. There is no Assembly Chair report. Sorry about that. Down to committee assignments. Harriet?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a committee report, but I do want to announce that this Saturday, Minnesota Park is having a work party that's organized by the Department of Parks and Recreation as well as the Parks Foundation. I believe we're appropriating some funding tonight towards that effort. I've been watching the chips have been piled up there. There's going to be a lot of work going on. It's the long, skinny park on the west side of Minnesota Drive between Benson and Spenard Road. And they need about 100 volunteers, so I'm just letting the community know if you've got some time on your hands from between 9 and noon on this Saturday, I think it's June 26th, you are welcome in Spenard. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet. Elvie? I'll come back to Chris. He has a formal announcement to make. I think we'll get him on the air.
Sure you don't want him to go?
Chris?
Okay.
Yes.
Do you want to make your announcement?
Well, yeah, we've got a baby in the family. I just about an hour and a half ago.
Congratulations,
Yes.
Chris. Boy or girl, and how much? How heavy?
I don't have the specifics on the length and weight, but it's young and Mr. and it's a little boy.
Well, congratulations, Chris.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments from your committee, Simon?
See nothing to report. We do not have a chamber board.
Thank you, sir. Elvie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Audit Committee met on Friday, and we had two issues for discussion on our agenda. The first one was the exit conference that's required by the independent audit contract, and it's basically the opportunity for the auditors to present the audited financial statements to the Audit Committee. And the auditors reviewed the report to the audit committee and also the management letter. And you should have received copies of, at the very least, the management letter and also the financial statements, the detailed statements, and the thicker book. There were no material findings, and at this time, I'd just like to thank the Controller Division staff, the Internal Auditor staff, and everyone else, including our CFO, who was involved in getting the financial statements prepared, and also the auditors for getting it to us in a very timely manner. As a matter of fact, I think it was on time, so thank you very much to all. In addition to the Audit Committee discussion on the independent audit, we also had on the agenda the Parking Authority's audit on cash controls. And the Parking Authority staff did a really very good job going over all the audit findings and the recommendations by item, and we had lots of questions, and our questions were answered to our satisfaction, but we also agreed that we wanted a follow-up audit. So the Audit Committee agreed to recommend to this body that we accept the audit this evening with the stipulation that a follow-up audit be included as part of the 2011 internal audit plan. Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to go on, but I just want to mention one more thing outside of the Audit Committee report. As everyone may or may not know, I was appointed by the National League of Cities President to be a member of a 38-member Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee, and we had our summer meeting in Gaithersburg, June 8th through 11th, and just for the record, I paid for this out of my own pocket, and it was wonderful. One of our goals was our goal is to research relative topics and draft policy positions for policy and advocacy committee review, and then review and approval by the entire National League of Cities Board and the membership. The Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee is responsible for developing policy recommendations on issues such as air quality, water quality, energy policy, national wetlands policy, noise control, and solid and hazardous waste management. And I was really happy when I opened my email this evening before the meeting, because our staff for that committee was kind enough to put together a summary, and it saved me a lot of time, and at this moment I'm going to pass copies out to my colleagues. The next meeting for the NLC committee meeting is in August in Gillette, Wyoming. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Jennifer? Thank you. Pat? Yes, ma'am.
I had a question for Mr.
I'm sorry, go
Jackson.
ahead.
You said that you're requesting an additional audit. Could you please clarify?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Osiander. I believe what I said was we requested a follow-up audit.
Which, could you clarify that? What do you-
Okay. Well, the internal auditor provided an audit to the Assembly on the cash controls, and we asked the internal auditor in a year to do a follow-up audit to make sure that the findings are in place as they are supposed to be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else, Ms. Osiander?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still unclear.
Okay, let me try this again, Mr. Chairman.
Could I rephrase the question?
Mr. Raskins, our internal auditor, when he presents to the audit committee, probably in December, the 2011 audit plan, an audit of the Parking Authority's cash controls is going to be on that agenda for audits. Is that clear?
Not quite. If
Am I
could-
speaking
I
another
think
language?
we'll take
I
this
just would like
offline.
to, no, sir, this is a simple question. I just need a little bit.
Mr. Raskins, are you here? Can you clarify what I'm
Mr.
trying to
Jackson,
say?
could I finish?
Thank you.
Please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
All right, my concern,
Go
I
ahead.
don't need Mr. Raskins. My concern was, we already have had the parking garage cash controls done once this year, and it's done fairly regularly. So apparently there's a need now to do an additional audit, which is going to be additional expense
Mr. Chairman,
next year.
Elby?
may I ask Mr.
All right,
Raskins
and then
to
the
address
second,
that?
could I
Thank you.
finish, Ms. Gray Jackson?
Just
The other thing I wanted to...
I'm sorry, Ms. Osiander.
Thank you,
Elby,
ma'am.
please. Harry, go ahead. Debbie, what else do you want to ask?
The other thing I wanted to say is I do have some questions on the CAF, or the management letter, and I was going to hold that until it came up on our agenda unless there's a request to do it now.
I would appreciate you waiting until it comes up
Thank
on the
you
agenda,
very
ma'am.
much.
Thank you. Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it. Pat, any report from your committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had our most recent Port Committee meeting on June 10, where we spent a great deal of time with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers discussing dredging issues in Upper Cook Inlet to Nick Arm. I think we've probably raised some more questions in committee members' minds for those who were there, and I would encourage those questions to flow back through me. We will set up another committee meeting for sometime in July to address those questions and any others that come to the fore in the intervening weeks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Starr, sir.
No report.
Ernie?
No report.
Paul?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Our last Public Safety Committee meeting was reported on by at our last Assembly meeting scheduled, and since then we had a second officer within a 6-month period was shot in the line of duty on what was classified as a routine, although nobody could argue that any traffic stop is routine. So happy to report that Officer Gene Mills, of course, is home convalescing at this point and intends to make a return back to the force, which is a good thing. We do have a scheduled meeting for public safety. We're moving the time to accommodate a request by Mr. Birch, who's also on the committee, 15:30 hours or 3:30 hours, 3:30 p.m., I should say, at the Assembly Conference Room, Wednesday, July 14th. So if anyone wants to make it, we're at that point. I believe primary topic of discussion would be with the fire department, their summer wildfire mitigation plans and their apparatus status. I guess we've had a couple of trucks that have been out of service for some time, so we're trying to get an update on the fire department. So, well, next for August, I'm hoping we'll get EOC and other public safety committees, divisions and departments in the city to also have reports. So,
thank you, sir. Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On that same topic of public safety in East Anchorage, we're going to have a community-wide discussion, a sort of a town hall, and it's not just limited to participation from those in East Anchorage. We hope that people from across the city will participate. That's going to be on the evening of the 28th of June at East High at 7 p.m. All Assembly members are certainly welcome and encouraged to attend, and any member of the public as well. The only other thing I wanted to report was that the Saturday before last, I had the privilege of attending an event put on by the Parks Commission in association with the Youth Employment in Parks group at Davis Park in Mountain View. They brought up internationally renowned artist Robert Weiland, as you will recall, who painted the mural on the wall over at JCPenney's. One of my wife's all-time favorites, and so she was thrilled to be able to go, and the mayor attended as well. It was nice to hear the mayor talk about the value of arts for youth, and we had several area middle schools participate along with Mr. Weiland in creating their own murals. So they got to paint right along with this internationally renowned artist, and it was a great day in the park. The weather was beautiful, and I think everybody had a great time. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Osiander?
Yes, thank you. The Title 21 Committee will be meeting again on July 1st. At that time, we hope to finalize new standards for tall buildings, basically buildings over 7 stories. It appears that we're going to be requiring wind studies. So we've asked various architects in the community to comment on that one. Secondarily, we are going, hopefully, to be finalizing discussion about non-residential uses adjacent to or in rural large lot areas. And after that, we will hopefully begin Chapter 14, the discussion about definitions. We're meeting at the Planning Department Conference Room, 9:30 to 11:30. Everybody is welcome. And then on a personal note, I'd like to say a thank you to our Public Transportation Department. They've done a really exceptional job, I think, at trying to make more clear the alternatives open to the Chugach Eagle River community for bus service. There was an appearance at the Chugach Eagle River Chamber of Commerce, and there's a new schedule that's specifically out for the Eagle River area that shows the Valley Mover, the Connect service, and People Mover all on one format. So I want to say a real thank you. I think that's going to be helpful.
Good. I appreciate that, Ms. Osiander. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Johnston?
Yes, I did forget one item. I understood we might have missed an occasion this last weekend where one of our Assembly members maybe had a very happy birthday and a milestone. I just wish Debbie Osiander happy birthday.
Thank you. We all have them.
Congratulations, Debbie. I wish we'd known.
I'm glad you didn't, sir.
Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Osiander, I didn't know, but I did bring some treats. They're on the Assembly's table for later. And they're more than what if we had some candles, we could put them on.
Treats are
Madam Clerk?
always good. Thank you.
I wanted to say, after your comments on the Eagle River bus schedules and the Valley Mover, I was behind the Valley Mover downtown today, and I was wondering what that was. So thank you very much for enlightening me.
2 stops right now in Eagle River, potentially more later. It's a private business, and I think the partnership is going to be really, hopefully, remarkable.
That's great. It's nice to hear it. Thank you, Debbie. Next item in business is the addendum to the agenda. If I get a motion to incorporate.
Move to incorporate.
Second.
Motion, and there's a second. Let me go through it. Item 9A5, Resolution Air 2010-198, a resolution honoring David Orwell for his 31 years of service to the municipality of Anchorage. Assembly members Birch, Drummond, Flynn, Gray Jackson, Gutierrez, Hall, Holdeman, and Crowd, all of us. Item 9A6, Resolution Air 2010-199, resolution honoring Cheyenne Marshall for her 29 years of service to the municipality of Anchorage from all the Assembly members. Under resolutions for actions other, there's 9B8, Resolution Air 2010-194, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding a new restaurant eating beverage place liquor license number 4979 and restaurant designation permit for Long and Sioux Corporation doing business of Chef Lee and Pickle Barrel Deli, located at 1565 South Bergerac, and authorizing the municipal clerk to take certain action. That's from Assembly Chair Trainee, Vice Chair Flynn, Assembly Member Public Safety Committee Chair Honeman. Item 9B9, Resolution Air 2010-195, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage Assembly stating its protest regarding transfer ownership of a beverage dispensary, tourism's liquor license, number 10 for Alan Henry Choi, LLC, doing business as Al's Alaska and located at 7830 Old Seward Highway, and authorizing the municipal clerk to take certain action. From Assembly Member, Assembly Chair Trainee, Vice Chair Flynn, Assembly Member Public Safety Committee Chair Honeman. Item 9B10, Resolution Air 2010-196, a resolution appropriating a grant in the amount of $72,371 from the State of Alaska, Division of Alaska State Troopers, and appropriating $3,290 as a contributions from the Department of Law 2010 Operating Budget Fund 101 to the State Category Grants Fund 231 for administering the Anti-Gang Initiative Program, Department of Law. Assembly memorandum attached to it is 386-2010. Under bid awards, item 9C2, Assembly memorandum AM 387-2010, recommendation of award to Anchor Inc. for Providence Drive at Spirit Way Signal to the municipality of Anchorage Project Management Engineering Department. It's ITB 2010C028. It's for $966,895.35 purchasing. Under new business, item 9D10, Assembly memorandum AM 283-2010, 2010-2011, Bear Distillery 4985 application for a new distillery liquor license. It's in the Taku Campbell Community Council area. Under item 9D11, Assembly memorandum AM 384-2010, 2009-2010, MVets Post 49, number 3588, application for transfer of location of a liquor license, Taku Campbell Community Council. Item 9D12, Assembly memorandum AM 385-2010, 2010, Embassy Suites, Anchorage, number 4774, application for a transfer of ownership and location of beverage dispensary / tourism liquor license and restaurant designation permit in the Midtown Community Council area. Clerk's office, item 9D13, Assembly memorandum AM 380, 2010, sole source contract with Municipal Emergency Services, AMES, for the municipality of Anchorage, Anchorage Fire Department, AFD, $411,099.27 in purchasing. Item 9D14, Assembly Memorandum AM 389, 2010, proprietary purchase services from the Netherlands Sewell and Associates, Inc., NSAI, to complete a Beluga River unit gas field reserve study for the municipality of Anchorage, Municipal Light and Power, ML&P, $45,000 from purchasing. Backside of the document is 9E1 under Informations and Reports, Information Memorandum AIM 66, 2010, 2009 Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards, State Financial Assistance Reports, and required federal information from Finance. Item 9E4, Information Memorandum AIM 68, 2010, 2009 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR, from Finance. Item 9E5, Information Memorandum AIM 67, 2010, Special Notice of Intent to Amend AR 2009-77, previously adopted by the Assembly on November 17, 2010, submitted by Assembly Member Starr. Item 9F under Ordinances and Resolution of Introduction, Resolution AR 2010-197, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating a supplemental grant of $297,192 from the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities to the State Categorical Grants Fund Pass-Through Grants Fund 231 to fund the Air Quality Public and Business Awareness Education Campaign in the Department of Health and Human Services. Public hearing on that is for 7/13/11, and there's, 7/13/10. Thank you. There is another A item with it, Assembly Memorandum AM 390, 2010. Is there anything that needs to be laid on the table?
2 items, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Flynn.
First is item 9 Alpha 7.
Okay. 97 is AR 2010-200, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly welcoming Alaska Pride Fest and encourage the residents of Anchorage to celebrate our diverse community. And when that's pulled, I'll read the rest of it.
No problem. Okay, we need to pull it. And
Mr. Chair, we don't have it. I
you
don't.
should have it in front of you, Ms. Ostianer.
I'm sorry,
We'll get it for you. And the second item, Mr. Chairman, is an S version of 14 Foxtrot 1.
14F1. 14F. Yeah. Barbara says you can just introduce.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I do have this.
So we've only got one. Item 9A7.
Found it.
Is there anything else that needs to be added to the agenda? Anything at all? Seeing nothing? Any objection from anybody here? Seeing none, we've amended the document in front of us. I now need a motion on the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. I'll now go on to people that want to pull something for a little further discussion. Debbie, I'll start with you, ma'am.
Thank you. 9 Foxtrot 1. And 9.
Hold on, let me get it, Debbie, thank you.
Okay.
9 Foxtrot 1.
And on the addendum, 9E4.
Is that all, Debbie?
Yep.
Thank you, ma'am. Mike?
Item 9 Alpha 6. And that will be all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
6.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I forgot.
Yes,
I was
Ms.
supposed to
Ostiander.
read 9A3.
And 9A3 that's on the addendum to the agenda.
No, it's not. It's
Excuse me,
on-
9A3?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Deb. Paul?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Ernie?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull 9B1, 9B2, 9B3, 9B4, 9B5, 9B6, and 9D6 for purpose of disclosure.
Okay, so you want to pull all of them?
Yes.
Did he say 6 twice?
Mr. Chairman,
1 through 6.
No.
Mr. Hall said 6 twice. I just want to make sure that he didn't mean 7.
The second one was 9 Delta 6. So you had 9 Bravo 1 through 6 and 9 Delta 6.
Thank you. I heard the same thing you did.
Mr. Starr, sir.
No items.
Thank you. Pat?
Mr. Chairman, 9 Alpha 2.
Thank you. Ms. Johnston? Elby?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Birch? Harriet?
9 Alpha 1 and 9 Alpha 4.
Thank you. To administration?
None, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Hall.
I forgot, while we're at it, let's pull 9 Alpha 5
9A5.
for reading.
Mr. Honeman,
Sorry.
we're advised that Mr. Oleweiler will not be here this evening. Do you still want to pull that number?
Then we can disregard.
Thank you.
Okay, which one? B9 needs pulled. Pat, could you pull 9?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've
9B9.
9 Bravo 9, please.
Okay.
So we can make sure we have that correct.
Yeah, we've had some time with that one. Nothing else to pull, then, Madam Clerk, please start the voting.
What's Bravo 9? Oh, here, I found it.
Please vote on the balance of the consent agenda.
Okay. It needs to be a voice vote because Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I
Ma'am.
apologize. Could you
I'm
just
sorry.
read the ones that are pulled to make sure I got them right?
Okay, item 9A1 was pulled by Harriet. 9A2 was pulled by Mr. Flynn. 9A3 was pulled by you, ma'am. 9A4 was pulled by you, ma'am, I think. I've
Mr.
got you
Drummond,
down. And Ernie pulled 9B1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. On page 3, Ernie also pulled item 9D6. You pulled on page 3,
F1.
item 9F1. And then on the addendum to the agenda, Mike pulled item 9A6. Pat pulled my request, item 9B9. And you're on the record for pulling item 9E3 and 9E4.
No, sir, just 3.
Just 3, ma'am? Thank
Oh,
you.
wait, just 4. I'm sorry, 4.
Just 4.
Halford, yeah.
You didn't pull 3, okay.
No, sir.
Sorry. Just 4. That's all that I've got, ma'am.
Thank you.
Please vote on the consent agenda.
Is there any objection? This needs to be a voice vote. This needs to be a
They
voice
do a
vote because
voice
Mr.
vote.
Birch is on the line.
Okay. Do a voice vote, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Ms. Osiander?
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Starr?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Birch?
Yes.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
That's unanimous.
It was unanimous. That was approved. Mr. Michaelis, was anybody appointed to a board or commission that we've approved now that you want to recognize? I think Andy Clary was put onto the budget board. Is Andy here? How could I forget? Hi, Andy. Congratulations for being appointed to the committee. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Andy Clary for the Budget Advisory Commission.
And I
Pleasure
think
to
there's
serve.
one other out there also, but I can't think of his name. Yeah, please.
Rick, come on down. Thank you for agreeing to serve on it. Which committee are you on, sir?
Anchorage Wastewater and Utility.
Which one?
Anchorage Wastewater Utility.
Thank you.
McKinsey?
We'll now go to those items approved for a little further discussion or presentation. Harriet, you
Mr. Franny, sir?
Ma'am?
I believe we have one more appointee. Just
Mr. McKinsey?
Jim McKenzie?
Come on down.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
We actually haven't acted on Mr. Davis's, that's in item 11A, in unfinished business.
Okay, we'll get to that.
So I don't anticipate any problems.
I don't either.
Just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Which committee, sir?
Sister Cities Commission.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to serving.
Any questions for us?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
agreeing to serve.
All right.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
We'll
Thank
give you some questions along the way, believe
I'm
me.
sure there will be. Thank you.
We'll now go back to those who are pulled for a little further discussion. Item 9A1, Resolution Air 2010-179, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly welcoming members of the National Organization of Black Elected Legislative Women to Anchorage. That was pulled by Ms. Drummond.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Need a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Ask unanimous consent. See no objection. That's approved. Who's reading and who's presenting?
I'm reading, sir. And Ms. Gray Jackson is presenting.
Senator Davis, you want to come on down?
I'd like to recognize that Senator Davis is with us.
Whereas the National Organization of Black Elected Legislative Women, Nobel Women, is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization composed of current and former black women legislators and appointed officials. And whereas established in 1985 as a national organization to increase and promote the presence of black women in government in recent years, Nobel Women has expanded its vision to serve as a global voice addressing a myriad of issues affecting women. And whereas Nobel Women works to ensure the enforcement of responsible programs and policies that meet the legal, social, political, economic, education, and health needs of children, women, and families. And whereas, to that end, Nobel Women strives to keep governmental agencies accountable for implementing equitable laws and regulations that prohibit discrimination against women, promote equity, and promote participation in the public and private sector. And whereas from June 24th to 27th, 2010, Nobel Women will hold its 2010 annual legislative conference, Leading Women of the 21st Century, Transforming Health and Energy for the Future, at the Anchorage Downtown Marriott Hotel. And whereas on Friday, June 25th, at Nobel Women's 2010 Annual Legislative Conference opening breakfast, Nobel Women President, Senator Sharon Broome, Nobel Women Treasurer, Senator Betty Davis, Senate President Gary Stevens, and Lieutenant Governor Craig Campbell will present their greetings. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Anchorage Assembly hereby extends a warm welcome to members of Nobel Women and all participants in its 2010 Annual Legislative Conference, Leading Women of the 21st Century, Transforming Health and Energy for the Future, passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this day.
Thank you very much.
We want to thank you for this resolution, and we do have the executive director here with us. Would you allow her to say a couple of words just to give her appreciation and tell you a little bit about our organization?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you for the resolution. We certainly appreciate it. I'm Gloria Tanner. I am the Executive Director of Nobel Women. I'm a former state senator from Denver, Colorado. I'm glad to be in your wonderful city and your beautiful state. We're looking forward to a weekend of a lot of information, but an enjoyable weekend, because some of us have never been in the state before. So we're really excited about it, and we look forward to working with Senator Davis and on a lot of things that you're doing. I guess you would be the last frontier. Well, I'm not sure so many new frontiers are coming out now in broadband energy and all those things, so we're really excited. Most of these women are women throughout the country, 232 black women elected officials at the state level, not as close to government as you are. You're at the local but we look forward to working. A lot of us have made public policy for years, did other things on government jobs before we became legislators, and all of us. So on behalf of our president, State Senator Sharon Broome out of Louisiana, I'd say thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we look forward to meeting a lot of you and spending a little money in your city. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
We have some questions for you, ma'am, if you'll entertain some. Paul?
Yes, and first of all, having helped host a conference recently, National Citizen Police Academy Association was here last year, 2009, and my wife was actually born in Aurora, Colorado, and next year the NCPAA will be actually in Golden, Colorado. So welcome to Anchorage. And Senator Davis, as one of your constituents, you're one of my state senator. Thank you for years of service in elected office and being a member of Nobel.
Thank you.
We have more questions. Harriet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned 230 some odd legislators from around the country. How many people will be attending the conference altogether?
Probably somewhere around that, but a lot of the people are not only legislators, there are people on workshops coming in from energy and different fields to participate in it.
Great. And I want to thank you on behalf of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which usually gives out little ads and awards for bringing your attendees and your money to Anchorage. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee. As a local elected official in our great city, Anchorage, I'd like to wish all of you a very, very warm welcome. I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm looking forward to spending some time with you the next few days.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And Senator Davis, it's always nice to see you again. You and I go way back.
I know we do.
When Sandy and I decided to become foster parents, it was Betty that came to our house to do the foster parent study on us. And she still let us have them anyway. We appreciate it. Thank you, Betty, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item in front of us on the agenda is item 9A2. It's Resolution Error 2010-190, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and declaring the week of June 28th to July 2nd, 2010 as American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Week in the municipality of Anchorage.
Move to approve.
Ask unanimous consent, so no objection. Item is approved. I'm going to present, and you're going to read.
Yes, I am. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Whereas the Congress of the United States has found that experience in both private and public employment indicates that statutory protection of the right of employees to organize, bargain collectively, and participate through labor organizations of their own choosing in decisions which affect them, and whereas the public interest demands the highest standards of employee performance and the continued development and implementation of modern and progressive work practices to facilitate and improve employee performance and the efficient accomplishment of the operations of the government, and whereas the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO, was founded in 1932 to represent federal civil service employees and has grown since inception to represent more federal employees than any other union. And whereas AFGE represents the workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life, including the government employees who inspect the food we eat and the places we work, protect our citizens from the flow of illicit drugs, maintain the safety of our nation's borders, provide care for our nation's veterans, service Social Security recipients, protect our air and water, and keep our national defense systems ready to respond to any danger. And whereas AFGE represents over 3,000 civilian employees in Alaska at Elmendorf and Eielson Air Force Bases, Fort Richardson, Wainwright, and Greeley, the Veterans Administration, the Social Security Administration, Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Homeland Security, including the Coast Guard, Immigration Customs Enforcement, and Customs Immigration Service, the Department of Labor, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the employees of the Alaska Railroad Corporation. And whereas AFGE's 11th District represents over 100 AFGE locals in Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Utah, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, Okinawa, Japan, Guam, and Alaska. And whereas AFGE's 11th District National Vice President Gerald Swank has been selected Anchorage as the site for the AFGE 11th District 2010 Training Conference to be held at the Hotel Captain Cook for the week of June 28 through July 2, 2010. And whereas more than 120 AFGE local leaders, as well as AFGE National President John Gage, AFGE National Secretary Treasurer J. David Cox, and AFGE 11th District National Vice President Gerald Swank will be attending the conference. And whereas AFGE is proud to make America work, now therefore the Anchorage Assembly resolves that the Anchorage Assembly hereby recognizes and declares the week of June 28th through July 2, 2010 as American Federation of Government Employees Week in the municipality of Anchorage. Pass and approve this day. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and I want to thank you all for this opportunity and this wonderful recognition that you've offered to us. I'm going to have to get a copy of that resolution because it would make a great speech the next time that I have to run for re-election. I do want to thank just a minute. I think elected people everywhere, especially probably at the level you folks serve at, you recognize that elected people can come and go, but it's the public workers that make sure that the water is working and that the sewer is working and the heat's turned on and all those things are the important things that really make government work. And I also wanted to just point out this is probably my 100th visit to the city in 20 years that I've been coming here. This is certainly the most wonderful, pleasant weather that I've ever experienced, and you certainly have delivered that for us this week, and I certainly appreciate it. It proves that local government can really work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dave, anything from you?
My name is David Owens. I'm a local president. I represent 700 people on Emerald Air Force Base. I've been in Alaska since '78. The Air Force drugged me up to Fairbanks kicking and screaming. I'm a Southern boy, but I've been here in Anchorage since '87, and it's a proud option I have to be before you. I have a lot of good people that work on the base, the Department of Defense, to protect this nation. Civilians working side by side with their military members to make sure the birds are flying. That's their job. And I do want to thank you for this resolution.
My name is Lonnie Horn, and I represent the AFG employees and all the civilian Defense Department employees on Fort Richardson. I want to thank you for this honor. We really appreciate it, and we try to live up to your expectations. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Next one is item 9A3. It's resolution.
Second.
Thank you, Debbie. Let's see, this is a resolution recognizing honoring Joanne B. Contreras for 26 years of service with the municipality of Anchorage. Debbie, you pulled that. Are you presenting it, or who's reading it? Is there any objection? Not seeing any. That's approved.
This is a resolution recognizing and honoring Joanne B. Contreras for her 26 years of service with the municipality. Whereas Joanne diligently worked for 26 years to improve the quality of life in the community. And whereas Joanne began her public service with the municipality of Anchorage in 1976 as senior office assistant in the platting section of Zoning and Platting Division, the Planning Department, and then progressed as senior planning technician and associate planner before leaving the employ of the municipality for the first time in July 1996. And whereas Joanne continued to work in planning for 6.5 more years in California and Washington after spending a year living in Mexico with her family, and returned to the municipality in May 2004 as associate planner in the platting section of the Planning Department, with responsibility for applying complex municipal codes and regulations to numerous subdivisions. And whereas Joanne was promoted in October 2004 to senior planner in the Physical Planning Division, where she worked on long-term planning and was the go-to person responsible for school site selections and other school district-related items. Whereas Joanne has always been very professional and courteous with co-workers, the general public, boards and commissions, agencies in the community, as one of those valued employees who is dependable, has a strong work ethic, and has always been willing to help and volunteer assistance on projects and tasks, no matter how little and how big. And whereas Joanne has always willingly stepped up to provide assistance or a dessert or a side dish for any employee function she knew about at the workplace, even if she was not going to be able to attend, and even if it was in honor of her, as is the cheesecake she baked and brought for her own retirement open house. And whereas Joanne retired from the municipality in May 28, 2010 to enjoy the Alaska summers and satiate her desire to travel and spend more time with her daughters in the lower 48, She'll be greatly missed by those who worked with her. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly hereby recognizes and honors Joanne B. Contreras for her 26 years of devoted service to the municipality of Anchorage and its citizens. Passed and approved this day.
I never did enjoy public speaking, but I do have to say that I've really enjoyed working for the municipality of Anchorage and all of the citizens and all of the other employees. And I want to especially say that thank you to Jerry Weaver for hiring me not once but twice. And he's been my mentor all the way through, and I've appreciated all the people that I've worked with, including all of you. Thank you.
Ma'am, we have a few questions for you. Joanne, we have a few questions for you, ma'am. You can't get away that easy. Mr. Honeman?
Yes, I just wanted to say, again, thank you for your many years of service to the municipality. Again, not once but twice. I also retired and rehired and kind of screwed up retirement, so I wish you Godspeed and hope that you can stay retired this time around and enjoy your family and the lower 48s. And also, one of the areas that are kind of unsung, I mean, it's planning and platting and it's making sure everybody follows the rules, but at the same time, we've got a well-built city that has some meaning, and I just want to thank you for all your years of trying to make sure we stay right and true.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Johnson has a question, ma'am.
Actually, not a question. I just wanted to thank you for all the help. You were very helpful as far as the Hillside District Plan, and I really enjoyed working with you, and I hope you have a wonderful retirement.
Thank you. I also enjoyed very much working with you on that project.
Thank you.
Ms. Osiander's next, ma'am.
You know, Joanne, I have had, for some reason, a whole lot of experience and time spent with the planning department during my 17 years of elected office in this town, starting with the school budget, the school district, and your involvement with the site selection committee. I want to thank you very much for your professionalism and dedication. You've always been a pleasure to work with, and you'll be missed.
Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joanne, isn't it fun when you really retire?
Yes, it is.
I've known Joanne for a whole lot of years and worked with her, and she's a friend, and I want to wish you well on your retirement, and I hope we get to do something together.
Thanks
Thank
a lot.
you, Mr. Chairman.
I have to say it's not hard to get used to retirement.
Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your service to the city. Thank you. Next item is item 9A4, Resolution 2010-191, resolution honoring Philip J. Mankey for his 28 years of service with the municipality of Anchorage. That was pulled by Ms. Drummond.
Move to approve.
Second.
That's unanimous. Should no objection, that item is approved. Who's presenting and who's reading?
Mr. Starr is presenting, and I'm reading. Whereas Philip J. Mankey has diligently worked for 28 years to improve the quality of life in the community and carried out his duties with unfailing dedication and total commitment to improving the municipality of Anchorage's Geographic Information System, also known as GIS. And whereas Phil began his public service in the municipality of Anchorage in August 1982 as graphics technician in the community planning department, progressed to cartographer 2, and was promoted to Geographic Information System, GIS Technician 3, when he transferred to the Technical Services section of the Building Safety Division of Public Works in February 1998. Completing his municipal employment in the Information Technology Department after his section was transferred into the Planning Department in 2004 and then to IT in 2007. Whereas Phil has maintained and updated in a timely fashion the very detailed cadastral data set of over 30 GIS layers for the municipality, which involves gathering and evaluating appropriate source documents that include maps, survey plats, deeds, engineering drawings, right-of-ways, and other legal and technical documents. And Phil was always the final call on all edits to it. And whereas Phil has been the go-to person for many map products over his career, such as those for voting precincts, road service areas, and assembly districts, for which he made changes to, as soon as election results were certified, and Phil applied his legendary diligence and accuracy to all work from his section to ensure that all MAP products were correct before going out the door. And whereas Phil has many interests outside of his municipal life that include activities such as skiing and coaching, junior Nordic, fishing, rafting, biking, and using his superb craftsman skills. And whereas Phil himself reached new heights in his life when he successfully climbed Denali and posed with a Planners of Fire flag at the top of the 20,320-foot mountain on June 14, 1989. And whereas Phil is well known for his sense of community involvement, his gentle kindness, staying true to his values, and always willingly stepping up to provide assistance, whether at work or in his personal life, even taking it upon himself to collect recyclable items for the Planning and Development Center, and he was well respected by his coworkers and his customers. And whereas Phil retired from the municipality on May 28, 2010, to enjoy his favorite things in life, including spending more time at the cabin with his wife Susan and their loyal best friend and canine Andy, and he will be greatly missed by those who worked with him. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly hereby recognizes and honors Philip J. Mankey for his 28 years of devoted service to the municipality of Anchorage and its citizens, passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this day.
I don't know what to say. I can say thank you very much. It's been a wonderful 28 years, and I enjoyed every day of it, and was sort of sorry to leave, but it's, as time progressed, you got to move on and do other things. So I want to again say thank you very much for the wonderful time, and I hope my time here will leave some legacy behind, so people hopefully can remember my name. So thank you.
Questions for you, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you beat me by 1 year. Wow. Everybody's leaving pretty soon. I'm not going to know anybody in the municipality. But anyway, I want to thank you for the many years that you helped me and folks that worked with me when I was working for the municipality as an employee of the Assembly. I really appreciated your help then, and I appreciate what you've done after that, and I wish you well on your retirement, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with you, too.
Paul?
Just again, I just want to highlight that we had the AFGE representatives who were commenting on the elected officials such as myself who will come and go, and yet behind the scenes, generally in a section that most of the public won't really get a chance to interact with, and yet you're there keeping us ticking. And I just wanted to comment, with over 55 years of service, 56 years of service, walking out the door with just these last two employees. So thank you for your service to the municipality, and Godspeed on your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Next item of business is item 9A6, Resolution AR 2010-199, a resolution honoring Charlene Marshall for her 29 years of service to the municipality of Anchorage.
Move to approve.
Second.
Ask unanimous consent, so no objection. That item is approved. Who's presenting?
I'm reading.
Who's presenting? Mr. Hall.
Whereas Charlene Marshall has diligently worked to serve the public in the capacity of a computer operator for the municipality of Anchorage beginning in July of 1980, and whereas Charlene's public career has spanned the administrations of municipal mayors George Sullivan, Tony Knowles, Tom Fink, Rick Mystrom, George Wirch, Mark Begich, Acting Mayor Matt Clayman, and Dan Sullivan, and whereas Charlene's career began as an administrative assistant, and she was then accepted as a junior computer operator with Desktop Services. And whereas Charlene worked her way through the ranks to computer operator and was involved in all of the major technology projects for the municipality during the last 27 years of her career at the municipality, and she was a highly valued member of her support team. And whereas Charlene is an excellent example of what a public servant should be by her work effort, her willingness to take on tasks assigned, and her helpful nature in assisting her peers at work and the general public at large. And whereas Charlene has gained the respect of all her internal customers within the municipality, and whereas Charlene's 29 years of municipal knowledge and expertise will not be easily replaced, but she leaves behind an excellent example for someone to follow in her footsteps, and she will be greatly missed by all who know her and who have come to rely on her for information and advice. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly hereby resolves to recognize and honor Charlene Marshall for over 29 years of service to the municipality of Anchorage.
I would like to thank everyone for allowing me to stay 29 years. 29 years, 10 months. This close to 30 years. And I really miss the people that I worked with. And again, I would like to say thank you.
We have a few questions, if you don't mind, ma'am. Okay. Elvie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're another employee that I've known a long time, except I never met you until you retired in person. But anyway, I want to thank you and tell you what a pleasure it's been when I needed help on the help desk, and that was a lot of times. You were there to help me and others, and thank you so much for your service, and I wish you well in your retirement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul?
Yes, in keeping tradition here, I just want to again thank you for your behind-the-scenes work. I mean, again, a lot of the public probably wouldn't have a whole lot of contact with you, so you're one of the unsung heroes in 29, almost 30 years. I hung in for 2 more months, just 2 more months. But just to comment to the members of the Assembly and the public, 83 years now, 83 years that I did on the math here of service, darn near 84 between these last 3 employees. It's a lot of years of dedication going out the door, so we'll miss you.
Thank you.
Mike Gutierrez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, a couple of months ago, we had someone retire at 29 years and 11 months, 30 days. You couldn't make it 60 more days. 60 more days.
You know, some of those days seems like they was 48 hours. Yeah, 30 years.
I wanted to wait until the end just to thank you and thank all of the folks that we've honored tonight. I didn't add it all up, but it's well over 100 years combined total of service that we're losing to the city. And all of those years you've been working for the public, and it's made a big difference, and we thank you for that. And the city wouldn't be the great place that it is without that. So enjoy your retirement. It's richly deserved.
Thank you.
And I hope you have some fun.
Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
For purposes of Mr. Hall's disclosure, I've moved to combine items 9 Bravo 1 through 9 Bravo 6 and item 9 Delta 6.
Is there a second? Ask unanimous consent. Seeing any objections? There are none. Thank you. We can deal with that in one item.
Move to
Mr.
approve.
Hall. Is there a second? Mr. Hall?
Just to disclose that I serve on the Park Foundation Board, a not-for-profit charitable organization, received no compensation, but we got these items before the body dealing with grants this evening.
Any questions from Assembly members? The chair rules you don't have a conflict of interest or any. We appreciate what you do on all these boards and commissions. You're truly remarkable for where you spend your time, and thank you.
Thank you.
Is there objection to approval of these items? Seeing no objection, those items are all approved in mass. Ernie, did you manage to find the flowers at the cemetery? Because you told me the flowers had disappeared.
No, I never did find that hanging basket. I replaced it with another.
Thank you, sir. I hope that people that did it will think twice the next time they do something like that.
I would appreciate it if they would give that a little more thought next time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving on down through the agenda.
9 Bravo 9.
It's true, good old Al's in. On the addendum to the agenda, I appreciate you being here, Pat. Item 9B9, Resolution Air 2010-195, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding a transfer of ownership of Average Dispensary tourism liquor license Number 10 for the Allen Henry Choi LLC, doing business as Al's Alaska Inn, located at 7830 Old Seward Highway, and authorizing municipal clerk to take certain action.
Mr. Chairman, I move the S version.
Does everybody have a copy of the S version?
It's labeled item 9, Bravo 9 Alpha, small alpha, single page. Should have been handed out.
Do you have a copy?
Yeah.
Debbie?
I just had a question. The floor amendment that was passed out appears to have a different title.
The floor
And I
amendment?
wondered,
You're talking about the one that says 14E on it?
I'm sorry. Apologize. Never mind.
Okay, very good.
I'm with it. It's fine. I got it. I got it. Yep.
I apologize for creating confusion. Mr. Chairman, I guess I would just briefly ask council to speak to this version that we have in front of us and how it differs from the original version.
Council?
Through the chair, Mr. Flynn, the sale of the liquor license is part of the confirmed plan of reorganization in the Allen Henry Choi bankruptcy case. And what we're doing is protecting the municipality's right to get its taxes paid by making conditional protests so the Alcohol Beverage and Control Board doesn't approve it without knowing that our protest is based on getting paid when that transfer occurs.
That's all, Mr. Chairman, unless there are questions.
And for council, the amount is $40,000? Because the original document had 20, but I understand it's actually 40?
Mr. Trainee, the number is a moving target. It depends on when the approval takes place because interest is accruing.
Okay. But this will get us all the money the city's due to get, right?
Except for penalties and unsecured claims. This is for taxes, business and personal property taxes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Attorney. Debbie? I know.
No,
Sorry.
we took care of that. Sorry.
Okay. I'll get there. Is there any objection to approval of this item? Seeing no objection, that item is approved unanimously. Thank you for taking care of that, and my thanks to the clerk because it was definitely a moving target.
9F04.
And what?
9F04 is next.
Next item in front of us is item 9E4. Is information memorandum AIM 68 2010-2009 comprehensive annual fiscal report. Debbie, you pulled that one?
Move to accept.
Debbie?
I just wanted to clarify. I was reading the management letter, the report to directors, and I think that I understand the audit adjustments, but I just wanted to talk about them for a moment, if I could.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Specifically, I'm referring to the report to directors dated June 4th, 2010, that was in our packet. And if you note on page 2, it talks about significant audit adjustments. And there's 3 of them. And I just want to, I guess, paraphrase them and make sure that I've got it clear. The last one, the correction to the entry on AWWU, is because of that joint water line that's done with Solid Waste Services. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I got that one. The second, Mr. Gutierrez informs me that we got a yes from staff and a no from the auditor.
I would suggest that the auditor go to the podium.
Thank you. Pete? No, it's not Pete. It's Mukunda Control.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Drew, and I am with Mukunda Control, the auditor in charge.
Right.
Regarding your question of the correction for the entry regarding the deferred loss, during 2009, AWU did undergo a bond refunding, and they did properly book the entries associated with the majority of the refunding. But when you do undergo a refunding, there is something called a deferred loss, and that adjustment was just off slightly within the balance sheet. So the journal entry for that particular journal entry was specific to the refunding issue of the bonds, and it affected only the balance sheet, and there was no fund balance P&L effect whatsoever.
All right. I interpreted this when you said the audit adjustments as these were all significant and as such should be noted. But you're saying that there's no significant impact on that.
Right. We are required to disclose to the audit committee, to the assembly, whenever we propose an adjustment that exceeds a certain dollar threshold. And that's what we consider, quote unquote, significant, whether or not it actually impacts the bottom line. These are just entries that were maybe a little larger than whatever our significance threshold was.
All right. The other one, the second one is the restatement of the police, fire, pension, medical liability.
Yes.
Now, my assumption here was that when they we recalculated to make the payments go out further. No, that's not what it is.
No.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Osiander, the restatement for the police and fire medical liability is a little bit of an explanation. Prior to 2007, there were no accounting rules dictating the specific accounting treatment for what are known as OPEB liabilities. OPEB liabilities are post-employment benefit liabilities, but not pensions. Prior to 2007, there were rules in place governing pension accounting, but not specifically for non-pension post-employment benefits. In 2007, the authoritative body that sets accounting rules for governmental entities actually passed a statement that said, we want OPEB plans, these post-employment benefit plans, to follow the same types of accounting rules that your pension plans follow. Because prior to 2007, there were no rules on this specifically. I checked back as far as 1995, so many years ago, going back many, many years ago, the municipality had recorded what was known as the ultimate capped cost liability for the police and fire medical plan. And it was our determination this year that because of that change in the accounting rules, the ultimate capped cost liability really does not any longer constitute a liability under GAAP. And so we did go ahead and remove that liability from the government-wide financial statements. It's a very large number. It is a very large number, $130-ish million liability. But like with the situation with AWU, we consider it significant because it's very, very large. But it's also of critical importance here to understand that this entry affects only the government-wide statements in your CAFR. It does not affect your general fund. It does not affect the budget. It does not affect cash flow. It has no impact to the taxpayers whatsoever. And that is not to discount the issue, I believe what you're asking about is the pre-funding that's been extended out. So the deal here is you as the Assembly have approved the pre-funding arrangement and you will continue to make the payments in accordance with the pre-funding arrangement that's been adopted and approved by this body. But this particular issue is simply a matter of removing that ultimate capped cost from the government-wide financial statements.
I guess my only concern would be, since it's such a large figure and it does play a large part in our budgetary discussions, I guess we'll have to look beyond the CAFR to get that information then.
And I believe you do that anyway, because within the CAFR, there's actually two sections. There's what we call the fund level financial statements, and then what we call the government-wide financial statements. Your day-to-day operations focus exclusively on the fund level financial statements, which is where we get into the discussion of budget, cash flow, et cetera. This, again, is only affecting just only 2 pages, actually, of the 200-page document. You know, only 2 pages are affected by it, and it's like the very first 2 statements. Everything else will be the same.
Okay, so far it looks like my guess is the next one I'll have a misunderstanding too. And that one's on the deferred revenue. I thought this was related to the whole cash pool discussion.
No, the deferred revenue and accounts receivable, almost every government, my firm, we audit a lot of governments, and pretty much every single one of them, for your grant accounting particularly, will set up an accounts receivable account within the general ledger system. And for day-to-day processing, it's just very much easier to just maintain a single account that all of the cash receipts flow through. So at the end of the day or at the end of the year, if you end up with a on any individual grant, if you end up with positive cash or negative cash that you've earned or not yet earned, it resides on a day-to-day basis in that accounts receivable account. At the end of the year, it's really important to go through and break out anything that you've received in advance. You haven't quite earned it yet, so rather than have it show up as a net number, you break it apart and actually show funds received in advance as a liability. So again, it doesn't affect the bottom line. It's simply classification on the balance sheet.
I want to say thank you. I guess just to my colleagues, I found it very, very difficult over the years to really use a CAFR well. And it's really challenging because it's such a discrete time frame and our budgets have so much overlap year to year that it just drives me crazy because I think there's got to be something really well I can use in there. And this is an example, I guess, just all three of these where I thought I got it and I didn't necessarily. But thank you very much. I am hoping that I can use the CAFR more as we delve into it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Well, Debbie, thank you very much for looking at the CAFR as close as you do. All the years I worked with you, CAFR never gets by without you noticing what's going on with it. Thank you,
Yes,
ma'am.
it does.
No, you know what's going on with it. I appreciate it. Is there any objection to the acceptance of that item? Not seeing any objection. That item is accepted by the Assembly. Next item in front of us is on page 3 of the regular agenda. It's our ordinances and resolutions for introduction. It's item F1, Ordinance AO 2010-50, an ordinance amending Edgewood Code sections 21.35.020, definitions of rules of construction, 21.40, zoning districts.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Is there a third? We have to have 3.
Third.
Okay, we got the 3, and we want the public hearing.
Sir, I'm pulled this because I would very much like the Assembly Title 21 Committee to have at least one opportunity to talk about it.
Okay.
And so my suggestion actually is that the public hearing date be August, 17th. And I would meet the July one, but with vacations and the Title 21 agenda already full, that may be challenging. The rationale, if anybody needs, I can give a rationale.
If you'd like to, but ma'am, quite frankly, if it's Title 21,
Okay.
it's yours.
I think this is very similar to an ordinance that came up last year. We had in committee some real significant questions. I think planning has done some very good work and has really made it a better ordinance. But there are a couple of things that I think just need a little bit further discussion. I talked to all 3 of the electrical utilities this week, and one of them at least would like just a couple more weeks to review it because the net metering that RCA just did is going to be impacted by this ordinance. The other thing I think that we need to be aware of is this is a significant change for us in a lot of ways. I know that there's been so much community division over towers. In all my years, that's been a hot issue, but even fences and connexes and Quonset huts, potentially this ordinance will allow wind towers in every single zoning district in this town.
How tall are we talking about?
Well, if you're under 20,000 square feet, then it's going to be maybe 10 feet on top of your neighbor's house. But if you've got an acre, no matter where you are, you can get up to 95 feet tower. It's got to be set back significantly, but that's still, I think, a pretty significant issue that people need to think about. So I think we're pretty much there, but it's going to need, I think, just a little more community discussion.
I checked with the clerk, and we've got the date open, so we'll have it on August 17th, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any objection to that? Saying no objection, item will come back in front of us on August 17th. We're now down through those items that were pulled for further discussion. So we're now going on to item 11A, which is same memorandum under old business unfinished action, same memorandum AM 341 2010 Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility Board of Directors appointment, Richard L. Davis.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Flynn.
Welcome, Mr. Davis.
Ask unanimous consent, seeing no objection, that item is approved. Mr. Davis, are you still here? Come on down, sir. You're now approved.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any questions from Assembly members? Thank you for spending your time with us, Mr. Davis. We appreciate your service.
It's my
Thank you.
pleasure.
Next item in front of us is item 11B, Assembly Memorandum AM 342, 2010, Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals Appointment. Kate N. Williams was postponed from 6/8/2010 to permit a 10-day public comment period. If I get a motion on that.
Second.
Any discussion from Assembly members?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flynn, sir?
Just note Ms. Williams is employed at my wife's law firm. Declare that as a conflict, potential conflict.
Do you have any?
I have no financial interest.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to make sure that was on the record.
Chair rules you do not have a conflict, and you're directed to participate. Any other discussion on this appointment? Ask unanimous consent. Is there any objection? Seeing none, that item is approved. Is Kate here? Don't see she's here tonight. Okay. Next item in front of us is item 11C, Assembly Memorandum AM 347, 2010, School Budget Advisory Commission appointment. I need a motion to postpone indefinitely at the request of the administration. They're not allowed to make it because the mayor's not here.
Motion to postpone indefinitely.
There's a motion on the floor, sir.
Move to postpone indefinitely.
There's a motion to approve on the floor. Second.
You can still have a motion to postpone indefinitely.
I made the motion to postpone indefinitely.
Second.
Second, ask unanimous consent. Is there any opposition to it? Note one. One opposition. Then we do voice vote. Madam Clerk? Your microphone.
Microphone. Ms. Osiander.
I waited to do that for a while.
Just a procedural question here. Mr. Gutierrez and I were discussing. Why can't the administration make a motion?
Because normally the mayor can participate, but the mayor's not here.
No, I thought Mr. Michaelis could, but no? He believes he can.
Well, he doesn't need to. We've taken care of it.
All right.
We'll look at it later.
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez.
Yes.
Mr. Honeman.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Starr.
No.
Mr. Flynn.
Yes.
Mr. Trainee.
Yes.
Ms. Johnston.
Yes.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Birch.
No.
Mr. Birch was a no on the phone. Ms. Drummond.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that passes 9-2.
Item passes 9-2. It's postponed indefinitely. Thank you. Next item in front of us is Resolution Air 2010-78, resolution confirming levying special assessments for Special Assessment District 0425 for sediment removal in Campbell Lake, setting the date of special installment payments, interest on unpaid assessment, providing for penalties and interest in the event of delinquency. The administration asks that this one
Be postponed indefinitely.
Yes.
I make that motion, sir.
Okay.
Second.
Please conduct the vote, Madam Clerk.
Why are we voting this differently?
I know, but I'm just to get on the record.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
before we vote, why are we postponing this indefinitely?
Administration, Mr. Michaelis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are postponing this because all of the work was not completed. All the money that basically they agreed to assess themselves has not been completely spent. Ran out of time, and as a result of that, more sedimentation has occurred. And so what the Homeowners Association has requested is that they be allowed to assess themselves an additional amount of money. We do have money available right now, so we can go in there when it freezes and continue start the work again. And then if they are successful in getting the additional funds to remove the amount of sedimentation that was originally called for in the scope, then that will be done and we'll reassess that amount. If, on the other hand, they are not able to get a positive vote, then we will expend the funds that we currently have, and then we'll come back for what the actual assessment should be.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
None to clean up. Ask unanimous consent. Is there any objection? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, that action is accomplished by the body. Next item is item 11E, Information Memorandum AIM 53, 2010, Internal Audit Report 2010-05, Parking Garage Cash Controls, Parking Services Department, Anchorage Community Development Services. Need a motion to accept
Move
that.
to accept, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Gray Jackson?
As I mentioned earlier in my committee report, we met with the Parking Authority and went over the audit, and the committee felt very satisfied with the response, and I want to thank both Mr. Pollack and I can't think of your last name, but anyway, thank you for their cooperation, and they did a really good job explaining the situation, and I'm happy to accept this audit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion from Assembly members? Ask unanimous acceptance. Is there any objection? Hearing and saying none, that item is approved by the body. Let's see, we're down to item 11F, which is the illegal campsites. What's the wish of the body? Do you want to take a break now and then come back and hit that? Let's take a break now and then we'll come back and pick up at 11F. We'll be back shortly. By the way, I was advised by the great people that do our sound system that when we take breaks, you might want to make sure the button is off on your microphone. Otherwise, everybody hears about some great barbecue you guys had this weekend, but I wasn't invited to. So please make sure the buttons are off. And by the way, the microphone there at the podium never goes off. So if you want your 100 best friends to hear what's going on, your barbecue, go and speak from there. Let's see. We're now on item 11F. This is business, old business and unfinished action on public hearing items continued. Is there a motion of any kind on the floor on that, Madam Clerk?
No, there's not.
There's nothing on the floor?
Right.
No motion pending.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move the S version of 2010-43.
Second.
Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's start with the basics. The S version does two things in different a manner slightly different than the original proposal. The first is that it changes the waiting period from 5 to 7 business days. That addresses the concern we heard from some of the service providers that they need enough time to get notification of the illegal campsite and to get their personnel in place to hopefully intervene and help camp residents to find a better path to permanent housing. The second thing it does is it I guess, more carefully prescribes the procedure for disposal of property. That's primarily on page 4, lines 8 and 31, where we add only just to ensure that disposal is in accordance with Chapter 725. Which is a consistent police procedure that should alleviate any sort of due process concerns for property disposal. It does not, I do not pretend this addresses all the litigation issues in front of us. It simply attempts to address the public policy issues. I believe Mr. Mittman from the ACLU is here tonight. I don't know if Reverend Burke is here. I talked to him, exchanged voicemails with him. But if anyone wants to hear from Mr. Mittman on the outstanding legal issues that he sees, I'd welcome that.
Pat, is there any difference substantially between the original version submitted by the administration and the S version that you've worked on other than the amount of days?
Nothing substantial, no.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Osiander, ma'am?
Well, actually, I think the second thing he talked about is a little bit of difference. There's further amplification on page 2 of 5 in section B. So I want to thank him for that. I do, however, want to propose an amendment, and that would be on page 1, line 33. I'd like to say at least, I'd like to turn it back to at least 5 working days, if I could. Now, and if I could just clarify, I had a brief conversation with Mr. Vacalis and Ms. Engel about this. My understanding is you are more comfortable with working days instead of full business days. Is that correct?
We certainly would support 5 working days, minimum of 5 working days. And what that allows is that if the healthcare providers, not the healthcare, but the social entities that come out and would work with us at these camps, if they're not prepared within that 5 days, then we would give them the time that they needed to do it. So that's why we had originally said a minimum of 5 working or at least 5 working days. That does not mean that that's all that the folks at the campsite would get, because quite frankly, it could be posted on a Saturday and then abated on a Monday. It could be posted on a Friday and abated, not that Monday, but a following Monday. It could be posted on a Friday and it could be abated the following Friday. So there's all kinds of latitude, but what we're saying is a minimum of 5 working days that it's posted. And we would work with the healthcare providers and the social workers and make sure that in accordance with the mayor's desires, which he very much desires that these folks assist us in working with these folks during that process, that they're available and they're able to do that. And so, you know, that's what our commitment is.
Just 2 more quick questions, if I could.
Go ahead, Ms. Osiander.
The other thing I noted in here is now there's a real emphasis on absolute notification to social service providers that this is going to happen, which is a difference that's certainly stronger in Mr. Flynn's version than I appreciate. And the second thing I wanted, I guess, to clarify is, didn't the initial discussion with all the groups, I thought there was some agreement on 5 initially. Am I wrong on that?
There was certainly a lot of discussion amongst the groups, and there's in the notes, you can see where the discussion was, that they thought that at least 5 days. However, they just wanted to make sure that they have ample time to be able to mobilize. And I think the way that we've got this right now, they will have the ample time to mobilize, because if they're not ready, then we will postpone the abatement until they are ready, within reason. But a minimum 5 working days.
Okay, so you made a verbal commitment you're willing to do that. And
That's
then
correct.
one last, I guess, I apologize, one last thing. Why is 7 problematic?
Because it's really more than 7. If you post, 7 turns out to be a minimum of 9 days, that you've got a problem that you're trying to deal with. Remember, these folks that are out there doing this deed, it's illegal. It's against the law. They're breaking the law. And so our feeling is that we want to certainly make sure that they have due process. We want to make sure that we're able to provide some type of support arm for them. But by the same token, we don't want this thing to go on forever and ever, because it is a danger to folks that live in the area. Things do happen at those campsites, and our police department are regularly going to these campsites trying to deal with problems. And you know as well as I do the number of calls that we get from the neighborhoods because these campsites are there. And so what we felt is that so that we could make sure at least we could have the social service entities there, because we think that's a very, very important part of the process, that by saying a minimum of 5 days, that allows us to make all that happen. And again, if they're not ready, we will delay it another working day or whatever until they are ready to get in there and help us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gutierrez on the amendment in front of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to go back to Ms. Osiander's first question, because I didn't actually hear an answer to the question she asked. All the verbiage in here says business days. Now we're saying working days. What's the difference?
Just so that I can make it very clear, it's my military background coming out. A working day is a business day.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
Then, I don't know, I might suggest we keep it business days, just so we don't have to change it everywhere else in the
I
document.
have no objection to that, Mr. Chairman.
So what do you want it to read?
Then it would read instead, at least 5 business days.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have another...
Anything on that amendment, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair?
on that amendment. One of the things that I'm concerned about, obviously, we need to do something here. We need to clear out these camps, because they're a danger not only to the people who are in them, but to the surrounding areas. But what I have seen over the years here is our approach to other crimes in the city tends to set up what we call a conveyor belt. We move them from one neighborhood to the next, and then to the next, and we clean up that neighborhood, and they go to the next. The only argument that I've heard for a longer notification period that that resonates with me is to give those social service agencies a chance to get in and start working with those people. And Mr. Vacalis, in a conversation earlier, you sort of addressed that by saying those people would get more advance notice, and I think that's a terrific idea. But is there a mechanism we can use to say a year from now we look at this and 5 days actually has set up a conveyor belt? They're not getting helped. We're just moving them from Mountain View to Fairview to Spenard to Muldoon, back to Mountain View to Fairview, Spenard, Muldoon, and readdress that.
In an awful lot of ordinances, I think there's a lot of room for that type of thing to happen, because you never know how successful an ordinance is going to be. And so I know in prior times, assembly members have asked for a report to come back after a year of trying a particular ordinance as to how successful it's been. And I think that's probably the right thing to do, if that's what you're suggesting.
Mr. Gutierrez, is that your legislative intent upon the passage of this?
I think I'll listen to the discussion, look at the other amendments, and we may come to that later tonight.
Anything else,
Thank you, sir.
on this amendment?
Not on this amendment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Gray Jackson, on this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate listening to Mr. Vacalis' comments on why he feels the 5 days are sufficient. And I personally appreciate it, because I'm working with a group, T-BOP, who are on the other side of this issue. So there are two sides to this issue. But I would really like to hear Mr. Mittman's comments on this amendment, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
For just a few minutes, though, because I want to give the assembly members that are in line a chance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mittman, just on this amendment.
My name is Jeffrey Mittman. I'm with the ACLU of Alaska. Just as to the amendment as to the 7 versus 5 full business days, what our information provided to the Assembly has been is our legal opinion as to what a court would find constitutional. Our opinion has been that given that the municipal standard is 15 days for nuisances generally, that we believe any court would look at 15 days or 10 business days and say, if that's the rule for other nuisances, it's certainly reasonable as to an abatement as a campsite nuisance. We believe clearly the 12 hours is unconstitutional. Where in between there the courts will decide is problematic. I cannot tell you with a certainty what a court would do. I would tell you that from our perspective, 7 business days is not ideal. Would we consider that a court would definitely state it's unconstitutional? No. The problem at 5 business days is we have fairly good evidence from the homeless that on occasion they will be taken into custody. It's very easy that they would not be able to return to their campsites in 5 business days. The notice is posted, their belongings are gone, they never get actual notice, and because the way the ordinance is written, the property would be disposed of, they've been dispossessed of their property. So our opinion is that the 5 business days is below the constitutional threshold.
Thank you, Elvie. Did you answer your question?
Thank you, Mr. Mittman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mittman. Any other questions, ma'am? Mr. Honeman, on the amendment in front of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been in a quandary on this because I've heard many comments from folks in my district as well as around the municipality working from the public safety perspective in the past. While I'm very concerned about a person's property and the due process taking care of lost or mislaid property, which is covered both by municipal charter or municipal code and state law, state statute, I think Mr. Vakala said it best. You know, we're talking about, folks, this is not property rights in the sense of an apartment that they're renting, a home that they're owning. This is an illegal action, and you know, it's kind of one of those situations where if you leave something unattended in an illegal capacity, there's the consequences. You might lose your items. And not that I'm not empathetic or sympathetic to people's plights, in particularly in economic tough times. They need to find another location. We in the municipality need to help find the locations to make sure these folks are safe and that their items are safeguarded best we can possibly do it. But taxpayers and particularly folks that in my district have been very concerned about the woodlands, and particularly the areas we've had last summer or the summer before, many campfires that got out of control. And, of course, there's the human feces and waste that we all see. It's just a big public nuisance and plight. So the 5 days I'd be supporting.
Thank you. Mr. Birch, do you have anything on the 5 days versus the 7 days, Mr. Birch? It's an amendment to make it 5 business days.
I supported the amendments.
You what, sir?
Yes, I seconded the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Diane, I don't see you on the assembly, but I saw you punch into here. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that from a public health perspective and what we've seen when we've gone to clean up other camps, we want the time between notification and intervention to be as short as possible. And we are willing to work with the provider community for a longer time if we get to the place, as Mr. Vakala says, where people aren't ready. But when you think about a public health perspective, really, the longer time and the more time people have, the more time they have to disperse and go other places rather than for us to come in and our goal to really bring them to services and help them not be on the conveyor belt, which is really sort of philosophically why I, as the Director of Health and Human Services, think that the shorter time period is appropriate, with the caveat that Mr. Vakalis has stated, that we will work with the community, and the mayor's leadership team has a committee they call HEART, and I forget what it stands for exactly, but it's from their notes that they made a recommendation of at least 5 business days. And so I think we're trying to be true to that as well. Some may differ, but I just wanted to make sure that.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Mr. Flynn, sir, on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly to respond to Ms. Engel's comments from a member of the HEART Committee, which stands for the Homelessness Assistance and Resource Teams. The information received, the administration will use some meeting minutes of the HEART team planning group stating that a minimum of 5 days is what is needed to support homeless transition. While this was discussed at a meeting in the context of trying to work with a 12-hour timeline, this was never formalized and is not a recommendation out of that group at this time. In fact, there was a lot of discussion at the same meeting about how challenging it would be to try and effectively respond in that amount of time if the campers were anything but the seasonal worker or adults who could provide for themselves without the need for clinical or substance abuse treatment services. In reference to the HEART team recommendation of 5, if the reference to the HEART recommendation of 5 days is raised and I am asked about it, I would have to respond that the HEART team has had discussions on the amount of notification needed, but all such conversations preceded the current lawsuit and discussions with the service providers, and my sense is that the group would support the negotiated 7 days notification. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Johnston, on the amendment.
Yes, actually, Ms. Ingalls answered my first question, but to follow up, you have flexibility with this if you can't meet the needs in 5 days. Am I correct?
I'll answer that. You are correct.
Thank you.
There are no other questions. Please start the voting. Madam Clerk, please do a roll call vote on this amendment. This amendment changes the verbiage on S to make it read at least 5 business days. Is that correct, Ms. Osiander? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Flynn?
No.
Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
No.
Mr. Birch.
Yes.
Ms. Drummond.
No.
Ms. Osiander. Mr. Gutierrez.
No.
Mr. Honeman.
Yes.
Mr. Starr.
Yes.
Mr. Flynn. No, I'm sorry, I'm off here. Mr. Hall, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
That vote passes 7-4. The language is now at least 5 business days. Any other amendment onto this S-version document in front of us? Mr. Gutierrez, you said you had an amendment coming forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd asked Assembly Council to write up sunset doesn't seem exactly the right word. What I'd like to do in light of that amendment is to require review by the Assembly 12 months from passage and implementation, just to make sure that that we're not creating another conveyor belt. I don't have it in writing, but I can make that motion if you'd like.
If you would, please, sir.
We need wording, though.
What?
I'd be honored.
Yeah, the clerk reminds me we do need written language.
It's coming if we could take a moment.
We'll take a moment. Shouldn't take them long. One thing I was looking at was that ACLU had some changes on page 5 of the original document, 17 through 21. I think you've been handed out a list of proposed amendment. The problem is we don't have the time to fully vet this amendment, and the administration tells me it would help our legal case if this is passed tonight the way it is.
Then, Mr. Chairman, perhaps
Mr. Gutierrez?
I could bring that amendment up at a subsequent meeting. We can always revisit
We can always
this
revisit
at any
it, sir, and
particular
I would
time.
encourage you to do that.
I will do that. Thank you, sir.
Who's writing your amendment?
Ms. Tucker is.
Oh.
So, yeah, I think we can. I think we can put the brakes on that, and I'll take that up at a future meeting.
Okay, then we'll bring up for passage or rejection by the body AO 2010-43S as amended. Madam Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Yes.
Ms. Johnston.
Yes.
Mr. Trainee.
Yes.
Mr. Flynn.
No.
Mr. Starr.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Honeman.
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez.
Yes.
Ms. Osiander.
Yes.
Ms. Drummond.
Yes.
Mr. Birch.
Yes.
10-1.
The item is approved. The vote was 10-1. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I just need clarification on the proposed amendment that Mr. Mittman brought forward. We're just going to work on a revision to this ordinance. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am. I think it would be a nice revision to come in, but we can't do it tonight.
I understand. Thank you, Mr.
I
Chairman.
would like to take a look at that. Next item in front of us. You find the agenda is not all messed up. There. Thank you. It's item 11G. It's Resolution AR 2010-127, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly establishing parameters for a joint work group to establish guidelines for the implementation of managed competition and delivery of municipal services and identifying opportunities prior to Assembly consideration of the FY 2011 General Government Operating Budget. Let me find our cheat sheet that tells me if we have anything on the table.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Discussion from Assembly members.
Sir,
Mr. Starr, sir.
You remember I moved this out of order for action sometime back and sent it over to the Budget Advisory Commission. They weighed in, although I got only an email from the minute summaries of their meeting where they addressed the topic. I think the clerk sent those out today, and they basically approved the concept as written of a work committee to identify
several aspects that may apply for this concept of a managed competition or formalized outsourcing. I'd like to make an amendment, if I can, to the document in front of us now, which is essentially line 17 on page 2. There's also another reference down on line 19, which is to basically change the wording from 10 to 5, incidentally. So no less than 5 recommended opportunities for potential application. And then obviously down farther it said also to be eligible, and that's line 19.
Is there a second on the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment, Mr. Honeman? On the amendment, sir?
Yes, and one thing, Mr. Starr, I'm certainly one that always interested in looking for both efficiencies and effectiveness in a municipal service. And I do want to thank you for the amendment too, Mr. Starr, because I know in talking with several of the labor organizations where the contracting and privatization is in their contract language, it seemed to be a bit aggressive at that point. So I think they were very concerned that you would. Just the attempt alone to try to reach that number 10 was going to be almost unmanageable. It wouldn't be able to be achieved, and I think that would have set the whole process up for failure. So I thank you for that, and look forward to some discussion on this.
Ms. Gray-Jackson, on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Starr, in our Budget and Finance Committee meeting last week, I think it was, you indicated that your intent was going to be to refer this resolution to the Budget and Finance Committee for review, and you have the right to change your mind. Obviously, you just did. But I would really like to see what you initially talked about happening, and you're the chair, I'm a member. I'd like to see that happen, for starters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Nothing on the amendment, ma'am? Thank you. Any discussion on the amendment? Please, Madam Clerk, please take a roll call vote on this item, on the amendment.
Okay.
Mr. Starr?
Yep. Mr. Starr?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Ms. Osiander?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. Birch?
Yes.
Ms. Gray-Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Cheney?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Chair is unanimous.
The documents are amended now on line 17. It will identify no less than 5 recommended opportunities. Mr. Starr, sir, continue your discussion on this item.
Well, there was some reference to bringing it back to our subcommittee for the work, but, as written, and I appreciate Ms. Gray-Jackson's comments, and after contemplation, it sort of seemed a little foolish to bring it to committee to sort of form a committee. And if you read it, it really puts the burden of the effort to sort of coordinate and include all the inclusive groups, the unions and the labor union groups, the work units. It requires the administration to take that lead, and I would hope that they would look to the Budget and Finance Committee on the Assembly for participation in that. I know there's already candidates that have expressed an interest from the BAC, Budget Advisory Commission, and there's been quite a few successes at Elmendorf and Fort Richardson on this topic, so I think there's industry that can participate. So to bring it to our committee to sort of flesh out the mechanisms and any other debate, I guess I contemplated twice on that, and my recommendation right now is to bring it to action tonight, and hopefully we can see how that works.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Ms. Drummond?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wonder, in the light of the viewpoint community dialogues happening on the budget process in early August, if it wouldn't be appropriate to delay consideration of this item until after those community discussions happen, and that this item be part of the discussion community-wide, rather than starting now and perhaps not addressing it from the terms of the public. I mean, there's not that many people aware that this is happening, and I think it would be really valuable to have the focus groups look at it in August.
Mr. Starr, do you want to respond to that?
No, I mean,
choice, Bill.
I think there's a valid comment there in that. I'm not sure that there's anything that's intended to not be just appropriate business. I think the dialogue and the debates is for the administration and their practice. The municipality outsources and provides alternative to getting work done through many, many sources. One common ground I don't necessarily see in that process is sort of an effective criterion on how they choose and what they choose to look for alternative ways of getting the work done as opposed to a municipal full-time worker. So the idea that the dialogue should incur is really for our directive from the administration perspective to look at what government's good at and what it probably is best not to do. And so these fundamental issues such as tire rotation and oil change and things that we provide solely in-house, and that I see two reasons. I see the reasons that they were done year after year after year is perhaps our city wasn't mature enough to handle some of what they do. Heavy frame bus alignments. Very few machines like that existed here in this town 15 years ago. Now you see heavy truck alignment equipment in our larger repair centers. Maybe it's time to revisit that. So the dialogue that would occur through this is to sort of bring that whole concept of managed competition into a structure and a framework. If we go till August or later, that opportunity, I believe, will be lost. It's fairly complicated to establish fair and equitable criterion. We've hashed it through the committee at Budget and Finance 2 years ago. There's very good working drafts from it. I'd like the dialogue to take place earlier than later, and it's going to take some time to organize that work committee. So Viewpoint may have some validity to it. I don't think it's in her scope of work, however. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnston, on 2010-127 as amended.
Yes, I just wanted to, Mr. Starr and I have discussed this, and personally I don't see this as something that's happening immediately and might not have the impact on our next year's budget, which is what Viewpoint is developing a budget and developing a conversation around the budget. This is more of a developing ways of managing and administrating, and I think it's going to take a while. It's going to be a longer discussion than something that's going to happen immediately, and I don't see where the two of them would really relate to each. I mean, I think they relate, but I don't think that they would impact each other.
Thank you, Ms. Ms. Gray Jackson, on 2010-127.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I had the privilege of being the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, I put together a set of goals, which I hope are still posted on the website. And one of those goals was to find efficiencies within municipal government. And the way I began to do that was by inviting a department to each, a different department to our monthly meetings to talk about that. Well, I'm not chair anymore, so that doesn't happen anymore, which is fine. But with that said, I have to agree with my colleague, Ms. Drummond. I think she makes a very valid point. Her and I were together at a meeting with the folks from Viewpoint, and the fact that they're going to engage folks within the community from different aspects of the community, I think this is a very, very good subject to talk about, and they asked for suggestions from us, and this is a very good one, and I would encourage Ms. Drummond to make a motion that we refer this to our hired contractors to review during their process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. There's no further discussion. Madam Clerk, please conduct a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I believe I was in the queue.
I'm sorry, what?
I believe I was in the queue.
I then either dropped you out, and it's my fault. I'm sorry. There was no one here. Mike, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, then, in absence of a motion from Ms. Drummond on that account, I will make that motion and move that we postpone discussion or final action on this issue until after the Viewpoint discussions and refer this matter to our paid contractor.
Second.
It's moved
and
and
I'll speak to that.
On the amendment in front of us to postpone action on this item and refer it to the Viewpoint Committee.
Thank you. I think this merits a community-wide discussion for a lot of reasons. This is, and we use the term managed competition now because the terms outsourcing and privatization got to be tainted, as it were. It was my experience. I get a little edgy about privatization like this because it was my experience working with the state that privatization usually meant a given legislator had a buddy who was in this business and wanted to steer some state contracts to their pal. not that I think that that's what's going on here, but it's why this sort of thing, this kind of privatization thing, gives me a little bit of heartburn. I think it merits a community-wide discussion because we're not the first people to think of this and the first people to try it. Others have. In fact, in my hometown where I was born, in Cincinnati, they've tried it and hasn't exactly worked the way it's supposed to. They implemented it and their taxes still kept going up and still kept going up and still kept going up, and they have taxes that would make people here shriek. Even those who shriek about the taxes here. So I think it merits a community-wide discussion, a longer-term discussion, and I would appreciate seeing the body move that direction. Thank you.
Ms. Osiander, on the amendment in front of us.
Thank you. I'm certainly not averse to the viewpoint discussions including this as an option, but I do have a significant concern about adding on to the workload of a contract that's already under negotiation with the administration. Basically, the funding, if you recall, for that contract was very tight and was dependent upon getting some donations from private agencies. And so, as such, it seems to me that we should approach with great caution adding on to a contract that we're not necessarily funding. So I think that we can suggest it, but I don't believe it's appropriate right now as a formal amendment.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson on the amendment?
Yes, I was about to say what Ms. Osiander said, but I also thought maybe I should discuss what managed competition is, because it is different than outsourcing. It's Indianapolis was probably the most famous city that started it, and San Diego is in the throes of, actually they've developed a whole program around managed competition because their city went bankrupt and they ended up being forced to do it. But managed competition is different than outsourcing, and one of the ways it's different is that it takes the public sector, and you have to have at least 2 or 3 different other bidders to bid on the service. And where we have the school district and the municipality doing a lot of similar functions, if this were a management tool that we used, we could have the school district and the municipality and some people from the private sector bid on, let's say, plowing snow in school yards. And this gives us an idea of how much it really costs to plow snow, because with the public sector, they would then have to figure out exactly how much the cost was to their budget. And what they've found in other cities is sometimes the public sector is far more efficient and effective than the private sector, and they end up getting the grant. And this is where it's a different model, and it will take time. It's a management tool as much or more than it's a budget tool, and that way I don't feel it's something that should be tied with viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gray-Jackson, on the amendment in front of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Ms. Osiander for her comments regarding the contract that was already let, and she's exactly right. You know, the contract's out there. We don't want to be piling on, adding things to that contract, except Heidi, who met with Ms. Drummond and I, she gave both of us a card and said, if you think of any ideas and things that we can take into consideration during this process, please call us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Honeman?
That's about what I was going to add as well, so thank you, Mr. Jackson, for bringing that up. And my question would be, is it appropriate to ask the administration, could this be added in to those discussions without an increase or potential increase to the cost of that actual budget or contract?
Mr. Michaelis is on the line to speak, so I'm sure he'll answer that
Okay.
question.
Then secondly, just as a commentary, years ago my mother worked at the federal government Department of Defense at the Army as a purchasing and contracting officer, and there was a circular 1A-176 that went down, and it was the intent was, I believe under President Reagan, was to try to privatize and contract out as many services as possible. And what they had found, and actually and literally, what started out as savings ended up being as costly, if not more so. And the biggest difference is that the government, as the employee, and I think it's spelled out in one of these whereas statements, There is no pension program that the government or the taxpayers on. But what that essentially does is it starts to end up affecting our community. We're kind of a small community, and so in some cases like San Diego or even Indianapolis, there might be, I think the Yellow Page item was you look under landscapers, and if you go to the book, telephone book, if there's more than 10, then you probably have good chances of finding it probably in a competitive bidding process and probably get a similar service, but we may not have that option available to us in Anchorage. And secondly, what I was looking forward to on this discussion, Mr. Starr and I had an earlier discussion a couple months ago back, and he was indicating that different departments or different divisions of the city and the school district and have different prices for the same exact tire that you might be buying, and why couldn't we work together and be, combine those kind of things. And that's the kind of thing I'm looking for efficiencies, and not so much worried about, concerning about what we're doing on, bidding within, I guess you'd say, in the low bid process, because we all know sometimes what happens in a low bid.
Mr. Michaelis, you've heard couple of questions relative to the ability to change the contract.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Osiander, thank you very much for bringing that up, because normally that would be a major concern of all of us, and also Ms. Johnson for having the same concern, and Ms. Jackson. I've been informed, however, that this, quite frankly, is probably one of the elements that's already in there, and when they go through their process, they'll be talking about these type of things, different ways in which we can gain efficiencies, not the least of which would be managed competition, outsourcing, or whatever. So from what I understand, that is part of an element as it is. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gutierrez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of that, then, I think it's perfectly appropriate to hold off a discussion on this until after those discussions. And just by way of response, you can call it what you want. When I was a kid, my mom was a single parent, 3 kids, didn't have a lot of money, and she knew that we didn't like liver, but she didn't have money to buy steak, so she bought us liver, and she told us it was steak, thinking we wouldn't know the difference. You can call it a jelly donut if you want, but privatization and outsourcing is still privatization and outsourcing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I should probably keep my mouth shut. But nonetheless, just because I have the opportunity, reminds me of Sandy a few years ago, quite a few years ago, when she started taking milk and mixing powdered milk into it and telling the kids it was the same stuff. It had just grown automatically overnight. They considered she was wrong to tell them it was milk. They knew it wasn't. Mr. Starr, on the amendment, sir.
No, I think it'll be my colleague's comments. I'm not packaging this with any sort of ill intent to mislead the statements. What I'm trying to do by the dialogues, whether it be delayed or not, is to have the dialogue. Every job that we offer to a municipal employee leads to a permanent contract. It loads our pensions. It provides our obligations to provide year-in-year returns. What this is a solution to that. It's a solution that allows us to be very good at government where we're very good at government. And it gets us out of mowing the lawns. It gets us out of having to buy lawnmowers. It provides workers in our community additional access to our government contracts. There's a whole host of bonuses and benefits that need to be explored. What this says, and it's not any ill intent, it's clear, it's public, we've been talking about it since April, it says let's get this into a dialogue with those that can really understand how jobs are led in this community, what services we need to do, which ones apply for this. That's not us. That's the executive branch of government. I don't make any moans about it. There's a complex process that you go through in discussing and deciding which jobs and which companies, how the debate occurs around the managed competition, how the work units come together and bid on that. It's very complicated. It's not sort of a cursory, well, we're going to send that out to outsource. It's a very competitive process and can work very well. But the guidelines, it says it in the title, establish guidelines for the implementation, understand the process. It may come back that the administration says it can't be done. Our work unit bargaining agreements won't let it happen. Fine, we don't know that now. I want the dialogue to occur. I want it to occur at our level with the executive branch. I appreciate what the public will say or may say, but the point is this is a directive to the executive branch to figure out how to do it. There's no hidden agenda. I'm not mixing powdered milk with real milk. I'm not giving a contract to my lawn mowing buddies and all the other inferences. This is a solution to a very real problem that we have, and we're going to face it, and we're going to face it heavy in September, October, November, and December, and that's when we have to approve next year's budget. That's all.
Bill, don't mention that to Sandy. I'll be dead meat. Anyway, let's deal with the amendment on here. The amendment is to send it to Viewpoint. Debbie, did you have something to say relative to that?
I did.
We want to get back to the ordinance.
But I
Go
do
ahead.
want to warn you that it's too late. Sandy knows now.
We're on satellite TV. She doesn't watch this.
Speaking to this, you know, there's been so much discussion for so many years about contracting out, managed competition, and we've looked at it in pieces, but I think, particularly because we've now heard that it's going to be included in the Viewpoint discussion, I think it would be helpful for everybody to get together and just talk about what the heck we're kind of criteria and what we mean by it. I appreciate this because it's inclusive. The employees are part of the discussion, and I think anytime you have a complicated, worrisome, potential confrontational topic, it's really good to have a lot of diverse opinions together and talk about it openly and plainly so everybody knows what the heck's going on. So I'm going to be supportive.
Okay, on the amendment was offered by Mr. Gutierrez, and basically what it does, this amendment sends this to the Viewpoint.
I'm not going to be supportive.
I just wanted to make sure you knew what you were saying, Debbie.
I was speaking globally, sir. Thank you.
Okay. And by the way, Paul, that was called an A76 study, not an A176 study. I was involved with it. I understand it. We'll have to go offline and talk about it.
Kevin.
Madam Clerk, you want to conduct a vote, please?
I do.
On the amendment.
Ms. Johnston?
No.
Mr. Trainee?
No.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Starr?
No.
Mr. Hall?
No.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Ms. Osiander?
No.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. Birch?
No.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Yes.
Motion fails 6-5. Motion fails 6-5, so we're now back to AR 2010-127. Any further discussion on this item? Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make one more really quick comment. Again, Ms. Osiander, thank you for your comment in regard to getting folks together and talking about it. And I think that's a great idea, and I think that we should do it at the Budget and Finance Committee level, which would work really, really great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please conduct the vote. This is the vote on 2010-127. As not amended.
No, it wasn't amended.
Okay.
No, it was amended.
I promise you.
Okay. Ms. Osiander? Mr. Gutierrez?
No.
Mr. Honeman?
No.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Starr?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
No.
Mr. Trainee?
No.
Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
No.
Mr. Birch?
Yes.
Mr. Birch was a yes. Ms. Drummond?
No.
And that failed.
That item fails. The vote was 6-5. Moving on to the next item. We're now into public hearings. There's item 14A, Ordinance AO 2010-47, an ordinance authorizing the long-term lease between the municipality of Anchorage as lessor and Paramount Investments LLC,
Waiver.
limited liability. This is Lot 1C, Block 2, Merrill Field Replat, Edition 6. If anybody wishes to testify, please come in front of the assembly, state your name clearly for the record, and spell your last name. Hearing and saying no in the public hearing, this item is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Second.
Any discussion from assembly members? Seeing no discussion, Madam Clerk, please conduct the roll call vote.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Ms. Osiander?
Yes.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. Birch?
Yes.
Mr. Birch was a yes on the phone. Ms. Gray Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Starr?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Chairman, that passes.
Item was passed unanimously, 11-0. Next item in front of us is item 14B, Ordinance AO 2010-48, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of Lot 4A, Block 40, third addition to the town site of Anchorage, accepting when tendered $437,000 from the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. And let me go on through the rest of the money. $11,500 from the State of Alaska Department of Transportation Public Facilities, .puff, and appropriating said grants, and $11,500 from airport unrestricted net assets to Merrill Field Capital Improvement Fund. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing on this item is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Second.
Any discussion from assembly members? If not, Madam Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Mr. Chair, could we ask unanimous consent?
We could, but then I miss Chris. Ask unanimous consent. Is there any opposition? Chris, can you hear us? Yes, thank you. Any opposition, Chris? Doesn't seem to be any opposition. Debbie, I just wanted to make sure that Chris wasn't left out.
I understand.
That item is approved by the body. Next time, it was approved unanimously. The next item in front of us is Ordinance AO 2010-49, an ordinance authorizing disposal of municipal land to the State of Alaska Department of Transportation Public Facilities, .puff, transfer of DOT PDF lands to Merrill Field Airport, appropriating $2,282,300 to the Anchorage Fire Department Capital Improvement Fund, and $770,000 to the Parks and Recreation Department Capital Improvement, and $4,500,000 to the Merrill Field Airport Capital Improvement Fund from .puff. Provide right-of-way for the Glen Highway Reconstruction Project. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Here, I thought you were going to testify. You were going by the microphone. Hearing and saying no in the public hearing, this item is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion from assembly members? Seeing no discussion, ask unanimous consent. Is there any opposition? Seems to be none. Thank you. That item is approved unanimously. Hey, Chris, if you want to oppose something, just speak up, okay? Okay. Item 14D, Resolution AR 2010-172, resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $206,910 from State of Alaska Department of Transportation, appropriating $8,844. Okay, this is from the 2010 Anchorage Police Department operating budget to fund the State Care Grants Fund for impaired driving enforcement. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing and saying no in the public hearing, this item is closed.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion from assembly members? Seeing no discussion, ask unanimous consent. Is there any opposition? Seeing and hearing none, that item is approved. Thank you. Next item in front of us is item 14E, Resolution AR 2010-177, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving an alcoholic beverages conditional use for a package store and license number 4948 in the B2C Central Business District Periphery District for Skycap International LLC, doing business as Alaska Wine and Spirits Package Store located at 410 K Street, Lot 1A, Block 37. L Street side replat, generally located on the west side of K Street between West 4th Avenue and West 5th Avenue. Downtown Community Council, case number 210-066, and there's a same memorandum that comes with it, 360-2010. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name clearly for the record, and spell your last name. Because sometimes we have difference in spelling.
My name is Gary Hovanek, Hovanec, and I operate the store at 410 K Street.
Just to hold on, if you would, sir, a second. Have a little technical issue going on.
Yeah.
Could you spell your last name for us, sir?
Hovanec.
How can we help you, sir?
No.
Hovanek?
We're working.
Yes. I'm the owner of the store, and it's a FedEx store, and you have a letter in your packet that explains what we're trying to do is develop a section where we can distribute wine to people, Alaskan wines and Alaskan products by FedEx. We've had a FedEx store there for about 7 years, and we want to, President Bush signed an order that we could ship wine now from a licensed liquor store to a person that does not have a liquor store. It used to be the other way around. We had to go from licensee to licensee. So now, with people buying things on the ships, and they're duty-free, they can come to our store and ship them. So we need a license in order to do that.
Is it just wine, sir, that you can ship, or can you ship anything else?
You can ship within the state anything else. Just like you can ship within the state domestically, intrastate, not interstate. Okay. So it has to be to anybody here, just like a brown jug. Be the same way.
Any type of alcohol?
Pardon me?
Any type of alcohol?
Any type of alcohol.
Okay. Questions from assembly members? There don't appear. Okay. Jennifer has a question. Jennifer?
I imagine that Mr. Flynn has shared his amendments with you, and are you comfortable with them?
Yes. I saw this a long time ago. Right.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Any other questions from assembly members? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Anybody else wishing to testify? Hearing and saying no, and the public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also move the amendment that I handed out earlier. It's 2 pages. It is entitled Floor Amendment AR 2010-177.
Second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gutierrez. Just to briefly explain for those who are new to the body, we have had specific conditional uses for package stores downtown ever since the downtown wine and spirits moved out of the Captain Cook Hotel lobby across the street on 5th Avenue. We imposed these same restrictions on the 2 new package stores on West 6th Avenue last year. This amendment simply imposes those same restrictions on this establishment. They're not particularly onerous, but they do give the Downtown Community Council some right of review if there's any difficulties with the establishment. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from assembly members? Ms. Osiander, ma'am.
These look just the same as the ones Mr. Flynn's done in the past. I just want to make sure that, Mr. Weaver, you've looked at them and everything's right on. Okay, no problem. Urge support.
Okay. Ask unanimous consent on the amendment in front of us. Is there any objection? Seeing none, that document in front of us is amended. We now have in front of us 2010-177 as amended. In discussion from assembly members. Ask unanimous consent. Is there any objection or? Nope, not seeing any objection. The item is approved unanimously. Thank you for your work on it, Mr. Flynn. We now have in front of us Ordinance AO 2010-44, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code Section 1.5.020, prohibited conduct regarding use of municipal resources. Public hearing is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name clearly for the clerk, and spell your last name. Anybody wishing to testify? Welcome back, sir.
Assembly members and citizens of Anchorage. My name is Brian Arnold, and I'm here to show my support for the ordinance amending Anchorage's municipal code to allow municipal personnel, equipment, materials, and other property to be used for community fundraising. Specifically named in the ordinance are the United Way campaign, the Anchorage Chamber Citywide Cleanup, and the Muscular Dystrophy Association's Fill the Boot campaign. All three are long-standing charitable events that have involved the use of municipal personnel and resources for many years. Anchorage City firemen have been holding the Fill the Boot campaign for MDA for over 35 years in Anchorage. The firemen raised over $100,000 in 3 hours last year. We all benefit. Oh, wait, sorry. Okay. Municipal employees have also participated in this citywide cleanup campaign for 43 years. We all benefit from this massive cleanup effort, and the United Way campaign has benefited with the help of public employees for more than 50 years. The municipal employee fundraising campaign in the Anchorage School District's charitable giving campaign allow payroll deductions for contributions to United Way. I would think that the payroll departments in both of these public entities would have to spend a great deal of time setting up those deductions from employees' checks to make those contributions happen. We are a very giving community, and I think the community supports participation by public employees in events such as these. Many private sector companies allow their employees to set a number of hours every year to participate in charitable events. Public employees should be allowed that opportunity as well. Maybe the ordinance has to be fine-tuned a little to make it work. Maybe you could even grandfather in events that have been happening for 10 years or more. But whatever you do, these events should be allowed to continue. A community is a group of people that helps each other out, especially those less fortunate than themselves. And without it, we are not a successful community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Ryan, it is, right?
Yes.
Right, Ryan. Thank you for coming out again and testifying before this body. I adamantly support Fill the Boot. I always have, and I always will, and I want to see it happen with the rest of Jerry's Kids programs throughout this country. Are you aware that there is an S version ordinance?
I believe so.
I'm sorry?
I believe I'm aware of
Okay,
that.
and what that S version does, it basically makes it clear that municipal fundraising programs are not under the jurisdiction of the Ethics Code or the Ethics Commission. And what would happen if indeed my colleagues support me on this ordinance this evening and we approve it and move on, this part of it. Part two is that the administration hopefully will come up with a policy and procedure for Fill the Boot, just like there's a policy and procedure in place for United Way. I just wanted to make sure you were clear on that. And again, thank you for coming out, Ryan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Honeman?
Yeah, Ryan, I want to thank you for coming out. I know at the break I thanked you, and I think there's another gentleman in the wheelchair in the back. I also thank you guys for being here and participating in your local government. And you're absolutely spot on, sir. You know, we are all, municipal employees are all also citizens and community members that live amongst each other, and we do take care of each other. We are a very caring community, and I believe the majority of the people don't have the concern. I mean, and I will have to issue a caveat that there are several on-duty employees sometimes that are participating, and they're often called away, or sometimes when they're scheduled to be there, they can't. So I want to make it very clear that the municipality pays its personnel to accomplish its missions, and that has to come first. So I want to thank you for being here, and just make sure that everybody knows that, you know, we're not going to forego the mission of the municipality and government business in order to be at some place when it's nice to be able to be there, if not necessarily have to be. So thank you again for all your help and your support.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you being here, sir.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else wishing to testify on this issue, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, while he's on his way down, I should have mentioned at the outset, I'd like to declare a potential conflict of interest in my volunteer capacity. I chair the United Way Workforce Campaign Committee, and therefore that effort could be affected by this proposal.
Affected by it at all?
It's a volunteer capacity, sir.
I should make that same, since I serve on that board.
You know, in reality, I think all of us do something like that.
I'm just going to have to disclose
I
it.
don't think, I remember one time we were here for an hour one night trying to declare all of us who had a checking account, because the issue came up one night. It was a checking account issue, and everybody had to declare whether they had a checking account. It got ridiculous. So unless you're personally, financially affected, which you're not, none of us are, we're all hopefully involved in community activities. So let's move on. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is
You were here,
also
LB, that night.
Brian Grella. Last name is Grella, and basically I'm up here because Brian's courage, because it's young men and women like him that inspire me all the time. These guys are unbelievable, the spirit that they have, and the fact that he's willing to come up here and address the assembly like he has. It really, it really humbles me. The point is that as municipal employees, we are public employees. The community pays for us, typically to provide a service. And my argument is that the service we provide, if it's a charitable fundraising event, that is absolutely 100% providing for our community. I don't know how else it wouldn't be. The money we raise, especially with Phil LeBouk, goes 100% to the MDA. We don't keep any of that money. The volunteers, we have a lot of guys that volunteer off-duty, participate, and those that are on duty, as Mr. Holman has pointed out, our primary mission is to respond to emergencies and fires. Our ability to do that is not reduced in any way, shape, or form while performing Phil LeBouk. So I just think it's a very worthwhile, as well as the other charities that were noted already. It's a very worthwhile thing, and we have done it for 35 years, and nationwide it's been over 50 years. It's a very good program, and hopefully we want to continue to do it forever. I mean, obviously the goal is to get a cure. So I thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Drummond has a question, sir.
Thank you, sir, for coming. I appreciate the work that you do in both on duty and off. In your experience with the Fill the Boot campaign, has it ever happened that during a time when firefighters are on the street soliciting donations, that a crew has been called to a fire?
Yes, ma'am.
And has the fact that the folks are on the street and have to pile into the truck and get the heck out of there, has that affected the speed at which you can respond to a fire?
I would say not in a detrimental sense, but probably improves our response time, because typically we already got our pants on, obviously, and we're already out in the street.
Okay, good. Thank you. I didn't think it affected it.
Kind of funny, but
it does sound funny.
Well, the other way it would be is that possibly we'd be in the station doing whatever other activities we'd be doing, whether it's cleaning the station or working out or studying or whatever various things we're doing. So when we get called out from the station, we have to respond to the apparatus, don our protective gear, get on the rig, and then respond to the emergency. So the fact that we're already in half of our gear, we're already on the street, it actually reduces our response time.
Okay, great. Glad to hear it. Thank you very much.
There are no other questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing no one, the public testimony on this item is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
The S version.
Move to approve the S version.
Second.
Okay. Motion was made then to put forward 2010-44S. Mr. Honeman?
Yes, I just wanted to comment and thank Assemblyperson Ms. Gray Jackson, as well as the administration, Mr. Weaver, and I'm not sure, I can't remember, and as well as Assembly Council. We met yesterday, and actually had what started as kind of a concerning meeting for me. Actually, we went about 10 minutes over, and we accomplished quite a bit in that short period of time, and the language you see now in the S version was a direct result of some really good dialogue and good collaboration on everybody's part. So I just want to extend my thanks to everybody's participation in that. And I think this is a change in the law that is needed and certainly would be helpful to get the administration towards the end goal of getting a PNP. together. I urge that we pass it.
Thank you. Mr. Michaelis, sir?
Yes, sir, thank you. On page 2, line 7, it says, and are outside the jurisdiction of the Ethics Board. I don't know if that's really a good thing to say or to do in an ordinance. And I would say that that's akin to saying, of establishing an ordinance and saying it's outside the jurisdiction of the ombudsman. There could be occasion where the public may want some type of redress. And in their mind, it may be an ethics issue dealing with this. So what you're saying is that the public could not go to the Ethics Committee or file a complaint in due course, and that the Ethics Committee, basically, Commission rather, could not take any action or at least look into the complaint. So the concern is that last statement. If the sentence ended at the end of subsection, in other words, on line 6, with a period, and you strike and are outside the jurisdiction of the Ethics Board, I think that might be a better way of going.
I've got a letter here from Dennis Wheeler. He said, I specifically disavow that I was representing the mayor's policy, goals, or opinion. Because I think he was there, but he wasn't representing the mayor. Is that correct, Mr. Michaelis?
That is correct.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for mentioning Mr. Wheeler's email, because I was going to address that. And during our meeting, you know, he agreed with us, but he made it clear several times, both he and Dee, that they were not representing the mayor's view on this, and we were fine with that. I appreciate Mr. Michaelis's suggestion that we strike the last sentence and are outside the jurisdiction of the Ethics Board, and to some extent I understand what he means. I do believe that if we end it at subsection, we will achieve the same intent, and I'd like to ask Ms. Tucker's opinion on what I think is going to work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Tucker?
Thank you. Through the chair, what Mr. Michaelis says is correct, and so it really depends on the intent of the assembly. If a person, we have several avenues of redress here within the municipality. The ombudsman is one of them, and so the difference is whether this type of action is intended by the assembly to be an ethical concern or not. And if it's not an ethical concern, then the Ethics Board would be the wrong or inappropriate venue to decide matters. And a different venue, for instance, the Ombudsman's office, would be a more appropriate one. So it really is the direction of the assembly on where the thrust of both the ordinance and the thrust of the Ethics Board is to be placed.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Continue.
I really don't want to remove this if it takes away the intent.
Then I'll move on to the next person, Elby, if you're done.
Well, I wasn't, Mr. Chairman, but I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Honeman?
Yes, I feel the same way. Ms. Jackson is kind of getting the same direction where I'm at. After the discussion with both the municipal attorneys in the room and with Ms. Tucker, and again, the collaborative effort on all parts, it was clear that the intent of the assembly was to provide some codified language that doesn't specifically direct which, like United Way or Fill the Boot or any specific organization or, if you will, participation of the event, but it also was clear that it would remove some concerns about what is or isn't an ethical or unethical conduct as long as the municipal government allowed it in written form, that it was approved in written form by the administration or recognized by the assembly as an approved forum to participate in. So I think the language is good. I think it's the next step, which I think Ms. Gray Jackson already addressed, which is the P&P by the municipality, by the administration. So I think it's good language, and I urge we approve it.
Ms. Osiander?
Actually, that had caught my eye, that outside the Ethics Board jurisdiction language. And I'd really like to propose just deleting that. I think that it sets a dangerous precedent to say that the Ethics Board has no jurisdiction, particularly when these are activities that will be performed by municipal employees who certainly are underneath the Ethics Board jurisdiction. I, too, want to thank the folks who worked on this, and I want to tell the people in the audience and the people who've contacted me that I know of no one really who opposes the wonderful things that our employees in the city does to contribute to charitable organizations. I personally think Fill the Boot's just a fine thing. It's just to try to work this through in a way so we don't put ourselves in a box and cause unintended problems. So sometimes it's frustrating, but we have to work through language that everybody can understand and is clear. It seems to me that, at least from what I read from Mr. Wheeler's letter and from Mr. Vacalis' comment, though I understand Ms. Tucker's comment, it seems to me we'd still be okay if we deleted line 7, and it certainly would increase my comfort with the whole thing exponentially. So I'd like to move to delete page 2, line 7.
Who seconded? Jennifer did. Okay. It's moved and seconded. Debbie, any further discussion on it?
No,
Self-evident.
I think it's a dangerous policy thing to say.
Okay. Ernie Hull, I know you're in line. Is that later on after this issue, or do you have something with this issue?
No, I should speak after this issue. You've got a motion on the floor.
Paul, do you have anything on this motion?
I think sometimes it takes, I guess, leadership and courage to stand and say, what is our intent as a body on the Assembly? And one of the things I don't want to do, and what I want very clear, is the intent that we do not put our municipal employees in a potential line of fire for participating in an event that has been approved by administration or the municipal assembly. And I think that by putting this specific language in makes it very clear of our intent. And I think that if it ever becomes an issue that it's an issue, then I think we can go back to make, as we've said earlier on other ordinances, we can go back and make amendments at that time. I'd still urge that we continue the language as written.
Ms. Gray-Jackson on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Horniman, I'm sorry. Did you just say that you urge that we maintain the language that's already there? I missed that.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Because my big concern is, I know what my intent is, okay? And all along, it's been the administration's position that, for starters, this was, prohibited by the ethics code.
Right.
And from, from conversations with our attorney and others, it has nothing to do with the ethics code. So I just want to make sure, if I do agree to remove this, that I'm not moving away from what my intentions are. So I want to be very careful with my actions this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. No other discussion. Madam Clerk, please conduct the vote on this amendment. I'm excuse Debbie?
An additional question. Mr. Vacalis and I were conferring down here. Mr. Vacalis, I think he and I heard you differently. My understanding is that your belief would be, if we delete line 7, that we basically then are enabling the ongoing charitable contributions to continue. In other words, we then do not place a roadblock in front of the Fill the Boot. Is that correct or not correct?
Instead of giving you a yes or no answer, let me please explain one more time.
All right.
What the concern is, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you made your motion and explained your motion, and that is that we're precedent setting here, because it could be conceivable that even if the mayor does exactly what this says and comes up with a policy that basically does the accomplishes the intent of the ordinance, it's conceivable that someone could have a problem with something about what an individual or a group did. They have recourse now because they could go to the ethics committee if they think it's an ethics problem. If you eliminate this, then that is one avenue that the public does not have available to them. I don't think that that would happen, but you never know. And what you're doing is just eliminating the possibility of the public having some type of redress in the ethics arena. And that's why I made that comment. As far as the mayor developing a policy and all of those things that's sanctioned in this ordinance, I think that's all well and good, but the problem is you're setting a precedence because now you're saying that one of the courses of redress that the public has is eliminated from them. That's all.
Mr. Trainee, could I re-ask the question?
Go ahead, ma'am.
Would this set up parameters so the fill the boot could work?
I think so. Sure.
All right. That's what I heard. And so that's why I think that I still urge the amendment. If it didn't, I'd say we should postpone this and work on it some more.
Madam Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote on the amendment. The amendment gets rid of line 7, page 2, and we'll have a period after subsection, and are outside the jurisdiction of the Ethics Board would be gone. Yes, Jennifer.
As a second of your amendment, did I hear you correctly? Are you comfortable with this amendment, or would you want to suggest postponing it and for further discussion? Because I think there might be something coming up in that.
If you want to take a minute, Debbie, there is somebody coming up right after you that has an issue.
I would be happy to make a motion to defer my amendment until later on in this discussion. Is that acceptable, Mr. Chairman?
That's acceptable by the chair, ma'am.
I'm fine with that. I'm basically trying to get us through this.
I know you are.
Okay.
So am I.
I'll
Ernie?
second that.
Yes.
Ernie?
I would like to move to hold this over to the next meeting because of the conversation that we've seen here. This is really an important piece of work, and I hate to see it wordsmithed here and we get the wrong verbiage in it. I don't think 2 weeks will make that much difference, and we'll have it right. This is too important not to get it that way.
I agree with you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ask unanimous consent.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to note that the next meeting is 3 weeks away.
Okay, 3 weeks
So
away, ma'am.
that's a long time to think about it, but also I just want to make sure that this decision won't affect when does the fill the boot operation happen?
October?
Okay.
April. What is it? Labor Day. We're fine.
Okay,
I was
thank you.
wrong, but it's still a long ways
Thank you.
off.
Just wanted to alert you to the calendar. Thank you.
I think we're all concerned about fill the boot. We all want to make sure it happens. I think we all just want to make sure we're absolutely right on with where we're going with this, ma'am. Is there any objection to postponing until our next meeting? Seeing no objection, that item will come up at our next meeting.
And thanks for your advice, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Next item in front of us is special orders. There are none. Item 16 is unfinished agenda. We don't have any. Audience participation. Is there anybody that wants to discuss anything with us? Come on up, ma'am. Are you involved with the city in any legal aspect?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Just want to make sure, because if you are, we can't have you here to discuss it.
Okay.
You've got 3 minutes, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Diane Witt. I am the president and managing owner of Witt General, a subcontractor on the Airport Heights Fire Training Center. First, I wanted to point out that I have a pending records request with the municipal clerk's office that I called this afternoon and spoke to a very polite gentleman named Shalem Matthews, who promptly returned my call and answered my questions and gave me a progress report on that, and I wanted to highlight his helpfulness, being he's the fifth person I've spoken to at the municipality and the only one who returned my calls. The other thing I wanted to point out is that I am in settlement negotiations for the $340,000 that I'm still owed on the project. Those are pending. And I wanted to highlight today the municipal employee who was the key decision maker in the decision to withhold payment from my company. Just to give a brief timeline, we began work 13 months ago. The first day we showed up on the job was May 4th. 2009. We completed our work on the last day of October 2009, and the last payment we received was November 25th. I wanted to point out that the first time we were introduced to this particular employee, his name is John Clark of Maintenance and Operations Capital Projects Division, was in November after we had completed the work, when we were told for the first time that the rates we had agreed to before the work began were not valid, and he was unilaterally changing them. I wanted to point out that he rose rapidly in the Capital Projects Division. In the contract documents that I have, beginning in August 08, he was listed as a general foreman. And in the short year and a half time since then, he was listed as a contract supervisor, then a contracts manager, and most recently as a superintendent. I'm not sure what he did to deserve such a rapid promotional track, but I can say that I'm not really happy with his performance.
Point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
Right here, sir.
Sorry, Debbie.
I'm a little uncomfortable with any kind of a comment made about an employee.
Okay.
And would suggest it might be better to do that either confidentially or you get into issues here.
I attempted that. I spoke with Mr. Vacalis, Greg Jones, who is again not here. I also spoke with Marilyn Stewart Richardson's office, because it was in the press release that she is in charge of fielding complaints from subcontractors, minority subcontractors, which I am.
Let me check with George. George, did you deal with this individual relative to her complaint?
Early on, in fact, as a result of that, she was able to get her first increment of payments.
I just don't want employees to
I know.
not be able to present their side of it.
Well, we've asked him multiple times, and he doesn't respond. So.
I know, ma'am, but would you leave his name out of it, because I'm
Sure.
concerned. We've got to talk to legal first, so
Sure.
just go on, but leave his name out of it.
Okay. Beyond that, that's all I wanted to say, that it is still unresolved to my satisfaction. And apparently, you know, as I said when I first appeared, I lost my business building and constructing the Airport Heights Fire Training Center. It was not my belief when I signed on to that project that that would happen. We believed that we had a minimum amount of protection, being a public project with public money, and we were punished for the rules and the codes that are in place were not followed in our case.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to testify at the assembly, please come forward. Yes, sir. Need you to state your name clearly for the record and spell your last name.
My name is Bob Eder, E-D-E-R. I'm with ASRC Construction Holding Company. And I wanted to follow up with what Mrs. Witt said, because I've been dealing with Diane on this project, peripherally helping out some of the issues she had. And we are in a settlement. We're down to basically one issue on a settlement agreement. I talked to Diane today, as a matter of fact, to try to shed some light on the one issue she does have. And some of my higher-ups are not available right now that could sign off on it. But I think we're going to be really close to finalizing that. I know she's brought this up at this meeting, the Assembly, a couple times before. So I just want everybody to know that we are proceeding and trying to find a resolution that's acceptable to all parties. And we should have something maybe by the end of this week. So,
You say you're with Anchorage Sand and Gravel?
Pardon? I'm with Arctic Slope Construction. Arctic Slope. We were a subsidiary of ASRC, was a general contractor on the fire training center. And I actually work for another subsidiary. They just brought me in to kind of be I don't know if a peacemaker is the right word, but there was some conflict with some personalities on the job. So
Good.
I just was asked to help in last November.
Well, thanks for being involved,
So,
sir.
mhm.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come in front of the assembly. Hearing and seeing no one, we're done with that particular part of the agenda. We're now down to assembly comments. Debbie? Mike?
Town hall meeting on public safety, June 28th, 7 p.m. East High. Thank you.
Paul?
Invite everybody there.
Ernie?
No comment.
Bill? Paul?
No, thank you.
Sorry, I know. Yeah, I know. Jennifer? Thank you. Elby?
It's 8:20, and that's when Ms. Johnson said the meeting would end.
Wait a minute, I haven't talked yet.
Stop doing this. Chris, can you talk for the next hour or so?
I'll do that.
Congratulations, guys. It's impressive as your family grows. Harriet?
Since I didn't announce it at the beginning, I'd like to encourage everybody to drop in on the Spenard Farmers Market every Saturday from 10 to 3. It's been remarkably successful considering what a late start they got in soliciting vendors and all of that sort of thing. And it's a really great community effort. I think I've told you all that Chilkoot Charlie's provided free use of their parking lot and covers the insurance, allows the organization to function as a nonprofit, and it's just getting better every week. So thanks, and have a great 3 weeks.
Barbara, do you have anything that's good for the body from the clerk's office we need to know about?
Don't quite know how to answer that, but I have nothing to add at the moment. Thank you.
Mr.
Where's
Trainer?
Jacqueline at now? Is she back?
No, she'll be back next week.
Jacqueline went down for additional training down at Tacoma. Yes.
I would like to invite everybody to Bear Paw. Thank you for.
Now you're going to have a fire truck there?
I hope so.
I hope so, too. That Bear Paw is a great event when we go out there.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting us, Debbie.
I understand Ms. Johnston is going to be carrying a stinky salmon in a race.
I did that. I did that.
It's great. Any other comments from Assembly members? Mr. Michaelis?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Trainee. We have interns with us that's been working in the legal department, and our attorney would like to introduce them, if that's all right with the body.
Absolutely.
It'll just take a moment, Mr. Chair, if you young ladies will come up to the microphone and give your names and tell the Assembly what law school that you're going back to in a couple weeks.
What year standing you are? Are you an L1, L2? Yeah, I know.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Carnes. I go to Willamette University, and I'm going to be a 3L.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Herbst. I go to Lewis and Clark, and I'll be a 3L as well.
My name is Megan Costello. I go to Lewis and Clark, and I'm going to be a 2L.
Good evening. My name is Miju Zhang. I go to Lewis and Clark Law School, and I'm a 2L. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, and thanks for working with us. With that, I need a motion to adjourn. We've got one. Is there a second? We're adjourned. So you got money again.